Good afternoon and welcome to the Polk County School Board work session for October 27th, 2020. Thank everyone for coming today. We have 6 of our board members again, and I think Ms. Fortney's on Zoom. So I would like to thank those of you that are in the audience today who have joined us, and we will go ahead and get started. So I'd like to turn it over to Madam Superintendent if you'd like to work our work session from here forward.
Thank you, my pleasure. And again, welcome everyone to our work session for October 27th. And we're going to begin with an update with Ms. Usher as she comes forward. Board members, you had 3 attachments that were attached to this item. It's an update on our capital planning. You had a sales tax update for the 15-year plan. You also had a revenue summary, and then you had a construction project. But right now, Mrs. Usher is going to walk us through the capital planning and project update. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bird. Good afternoon. Is it on? Yes. Yes? All right. Every year we come to you with the update to the capital plan. But before I really get into all the details for this update, I would like to go over some of our accomplishments last year. The big thing that we're so proud of is the Davenport Elementary School. We restored the 1927 building, and we brought it back to a full-functioning elementary school with an 830 capacity, and we tried to design the campus to reflect the old 1927 style. So that was a big accomplishment. Throughout the year, we're putting in upgrading the lights and fields. We are doing a number of roof projects and building envelope projects. We have all these major AC projects and HVAC change out. All the new elementary schools with playground. We did one at Lincoln, Pinewood, Auburndale, Eagle Lake, and Winston. We're doing parking improvements at 4 schools right now. We updated the fueling station at the L6 shop, and that was based on new state guidelines. Certainly, just to name a few, a number of schools were painted. We're still working on all the safety and security projects, the covered walkways, chiller replacement, and drainage improvements. Ongoing projects, they're similar to the accomplished projects because they fall under healthy school and safety and security. So you'll see these type of projects coming back all the time. Down here is the chiller for Lake Wales Senior High School at $350,000. And here's the playground for Lincoln Elementary. But these are projects that you'll see every year that we continue doing. And as soon as they're done, we take that off our project status list and add new ones. Projects for next year. We're doing the new high school in the Northeast area. We refer to it at 19AA. Tonight it's on your board agenda for the Davenport High School to be named. We have the one on Baylor Road, 20A. This school will accommodate the student population from Kingsford Elementary and will be quite large enough to provide enrollment relief to other elementary schools. 20B, this is the school up in the Northeast area, 27 I-4 area, right on the Osceola border. Also for August 2021, this is for new capacity. Ben Hill Griffin, we're doing the 26th classroom addition, and that is to accommodate Frostproof Elementary because we'll combine the campus. We're working on building 49 at Bartow High School. This is the big classroom building. This is the biggest part of the Phase 2 project. We're building a cafeteria at Eastside and a gym at Westwood Middle. In 2021, even though these might be done in August also, I put them out until December 2021. Mulberry High School complete modernization and Kathleen Middle Building 1, complete renovation there. I want to take the time now to recognize the late Rodney Turner. He was really instrumental in getting all these projects off the ground and getting them in the contractor's hand. So I just had to mention that. New major projects in the 5-year plan. We have Fred Garner Elementary, Southwest Middle, and Denison Middle. We made a commitment to put gymnasium at all the middle schools. We're doing Westwood right now. Next will be Denison Middle, then Lake Gibson, then Lakeland Highland, and then Bartow. With the new projects, the modernization, in 2018, we updated the condition assessment report, and we had different criteria that we used to rank them. Age, utilization, how well they can deliver their educational program, and also concurrency. So we had a matrix set up and different components, and we prioritized the school. And next in line is Fred Garner and Southwest Middle. Both of these schools will be primarily sales tax, but the portion that we're adding the additional capacity will pay with impact fees. So these schools will be split funded. Again, we use the criteria I mentioned for the modernization, and these are the schools we have in the plan right now for complete modernization. We don't have a specific year yet, but these are the schools we have identified. We're also looking at putting early learning centers, and I'll bring that back to the board, at some elementary schools on the campus for the real young students as they get them ready for kindergarten. And that is something I can do with impact fees. I mentioned the gymnasiums before, and Lake Gibson, Lakeland, Highland, Bartow, and McLaughlin. The planned new schools. We have the middle school planned in the Northeast area. This is off 27. We have the site for this. We have another elementary school, 21C, also off Highway 27. We have an elementary school next to Chain of Lakes. We own that property, refer to it as the Bentley property. And we're looking right now for property for a new high school. The reason why we did not add these, even though we do have some impact fees that we could have added these capacity projects, but because of the challenge we have had with projections, and we're waiting for it to level off, if we find that we really need these schools, I can bring it back to you as a separate project, but we have property for all of them except for the high school, and we're working on that right now. Now, this is expenditure. This slide was not intended for you to read, because I know it's so small, but this is the heart of our capital planning. Like I meant, we looked at enrollment, we looked at projection, condition assessment, adequacy, and different factors when we put together a capital improvement plan. And this is for 5 years, and it includes all the different funding sources, not just sales tax. In this first slide, we have the bonded projects, and you all know about those that we built with the bond, or still building. The new capacity projects, modernization and replacement. We have the expenditure, additions, remodeling, and we did commit to providing safe, healthy, and future-ready schools when we went out for the sales tax, and we're making sure we do that. Other CIP items like the clinic we have here, we have debt service, insurance, and technology equipment, all under expenditures. And on the revenues, we have all the funds we have. The only money we're getting, we have local and state. Local, we have the tax levy, we have impact fees, we have the half-cent sales tax, and the CO&DS, capital outlay, and debt service. Out of all these, it's only capital outlay and debt service that we get from the state. Everything else is local funded. Projected revenues, working with the Senior Director in Finance, she gave me an update on the long-range projections for revenues. And please note that based on the county, our sales tax only went down by 4%, so that was good news. Also included in tonight's agenda is the 5-year work plan and tentative district educational facilities plan. This is recommended by statutes, not recommended, it is required by statutes under 1013.35 that we update this annually. It is similar to the CIP, the capital improvement plan. They're only looking at our needed capacity, our other projects such as HVAC, safety and security, number of portables. It requires that we coordinate our school locations with local government, and that's for a long-range plan. In the long-range plan, we do have a number of schools, but that is based on the old projections, since we have not really done any projections this year. We need quite a number, like we have the 2028 and the 2038. 2028, we need 2 more elementary, 1 middle and high. By 38, we'll need 4 plus elementary, 3 middle, and additional 2 high school. So and again, this is always updated based on projection. Thank you.
And as you can see, the facilities department operation has been quite busy, especially this year with the multiple projects that they have going. Are there any questions at this time regarding any of the updates that we have brought forward? Any questions? Mrs. Cunningham?
More of a comment, just would like to say how much we appreciate the lot of time and effort that's gone in to put this report together. I understand it's a snapshot of a point in time as we move forward, but I just want to thank you because it apparently a lot of work and a lot of folks' effort went into this, outlining all the different schools and the needs and the different areas of the county. I think you all have done a tremendous job in putting this together, and I just want to say thank you to you and your team, Ms. Usher.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Ms. Fields?
There's a lot of work that has to be done here, Ms. Usher, and my question to you is capacity for staffing. Do you have the adequate staffing to get the work that you have laid out here?
Mrs. Fields, I think so for now. I have been working with HR and to make sure whatever position I have, I could convert to where I need that person. So they have been helping me with that. And I know I do, some staff members said I drive them too hard, but we do, we're getting our projects done. They are. So, and I'm hoping not to miss any deadline and still continue with the project. Luckily, a number of them, we got into the contractor's hand, so it's just more of us managing them to make sure that we're not overcharged and things are done correctly. So I think we will. But in the future, we may need more.
Okay, and the other question, and thank you for that answer. The other comment that I would have is I'm sure that we are ensuring that if we have local contractors that can do the work, that they are given priority over companies that might not be in the county. Is that, do they get extra scoring for that?
We do give, I won't say priority, because it is a process that is certainly we have a committee and we score and we go by that. But if you're a local contractor, you get extra points. So,
Okay, because I've heard some concerns from some of the local contractors just wanting to ensure that they're
you still
being.
hear that as concern? I'm surprised because the local contractors are so busy, they really
I'm just
don't
telling
have the
you what I
capacity to
heard.
do anymore.
And I just told them that I'm sure that you guys are looking at all aspects of the work so that we can make sure that everybody gets an opportunity.
Okay, they do get local recognition points, but we can't guarantee that they'll get the job.
Correct. Thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you. Mr. Townsend?
Can you hear me? I just wanted to say thanks. You've been a pleasure to work with. And you have a very tough job managing a big campaign, which seems to me quite successfully. I congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
I also, I'm going to ask you a question sort of only tangentially related to that. About the Tinnerock Mine land property that you ran the numbers on for us. You know, that was purchased in 2006 for $40,000 an acre, and it's now worth $28,000 an acre, you know, 15 years later. And I know that the recommendation of that is not to sell it, but what is I mean, it's at this rate, it'll never get back to what this board bought it at in 2006. Do you have a recommendation for how to deal with it?
Mr. Thompson, the reason I said not to, because certainly it's 2 million less than when we purchase it, and who knows how the economy will change. Maybe it will increase in value. However, we have to really do all the assessment, not just schools, and ancillary facilities like warehousing, if we might need it for some other type of ancillary facility. And at this time, I'm not certain.
Yeah,
So-
I just you know, for the group as a whole, I mean, this is the kind of thing that makes people, you know, distrusting of government a bit. I mean, this, again, no one out there had anything to do with this, but in 2006, a piece of property was bought for $40,000 an acre for like more than $8 million. And it was going to be a central football stadium or a school site or something like that. And then there was the land crash, and 15 years later, it's worth $28,000 an acre and worth like 5.7 million. That's a real hit for the taxpayers as a whole. And, you know, I would behoove the board, I think, and leadership to come up with a plan for how to address that. Like, I would hate to see it sit there as a soon-to-be taxpayer for another 20 years, just taking up space. So anyway, that has not. I appreciate you running those numbers on it. Has nothing to do with you, Miss Usher, and I thank you again for what a good job you've done. Thanks.
Certainly. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Ms. Fortney has her hand up.
Oh, sorry. Ms. Fortney?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Usher, your team simply amazes me. You're in charge of everything from toilet paper to architecture. And I value you as a leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fortney.
Thank you. And board members, with the properties that we have being developed right now, the Mulberry, the one on Bailey Road, 27, it's interesting to watch the process as they unfold. As I walked Mulberry and Bailey Road last week to see when they're just hauling in all of the dirt and then the walls are going up and everybody's hard at work and the community is so excited about those projects. Davenport Elementary, as you all know, was Ms. Cunningham and I had this when I actually walked that building when it was condemned, when I was told not to go in, but went in and it is beautiful. It is something that we have revived for that community and the children of the community. So I want to thank the team for all of their hard work because they are quite busy right now. And there are more projects to come. We just want to slow down until we see what levels off with COVID right now. But I want to thank the community as well for the renewal of the house and sales tax, which has allowed us to continue building our schools for our community. Ms. Reynolds?
Thank you. I know you mentioned PICO funds have been dismal and non-existent for, I think, my entire term on the board. Have we ever, for some of these schools, like the Kathleen Middle School project, which I realize was not planned, essentially, but for Davenport Elementary, do we ever look at some of the historic preservation grants in ways to, I know Andrew's in the back over there too, but just as another funding source potentially? I don't know if that's something we've looked at before or something that we can look at in the future, because I know we have many schools that are more than 50 years old and may be eligible for some of that funding.
Ms. Reynolds, just before I took this job, that was one of my primary stuff I did. We had some old buildings, and I worked with the city for historic preservation. It was really unsuccessful.
Okay.
So,
Awesome.
okay?
Thank you. I appreciate the update.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Usher, for your hard work and everything, and thank your team as well. I really appreciate them. The next update, Mr. Hill wanted to make sure he brought the board forward a COVID update. And as Mr. Hill comes forward to do the presentation for you, board members, we heard you loud and clear the last meeting, making sure that we had all the PowerPoint handouts to you so that you can follow along, because I don't think it's age, I think it's just our eyes go, because mine are gone. So we made sure we provided those PowerPoints for you. So Mr. Hill is coming forth with Ms. Scott, and they're going to present his update for the COVID-19.
Thank you, Ms. Bird. Am I on? Yes. Presenting with me today is Sherry Scott, Director of Student Services, and Audrey Kelly, Senior Manager of Prevention Services, who is here to answer questions with us and for you. We appreciate the opportunity to provide a COVID-19 update and refresher. We've got quite a bit of information, so we're going to jump right in. Our highest priority is to ensure the safety and well-being of our students, staff, and communities. To that end, it is imperative that we continue to proceed with caution. With the help of our stakeholders, staff, local medical professionals, and the Department of Health, we have developed and implemented a plan to mitigate the spread of COVID in our schools and at our district offices and at the district level. We remain absolute in our commitment to following the CDC guidelines and working closely with the Florida Department of Health in Polk County to implement and monitor our COVID mitigation guidelines, our practices, and our protocols. We have found that these guidelines, protocols, and practices have been very successful in reducing the spread of the virus in our schools. We are finding that most cases, and in most instances, they are not originating in our schools, and that we are typically contending with about 8 to 15 cases per day. And keep in mind that not all of those cases always result in students being excluded or quarantined, or staff for that matter. When we want you to be aware that many cases do not have a direct impact on the schools, and so that is exactly what I noted before, which is the good news is staff and students do not have to be excluded or quarantined in those situations. The Florida Department of Health is closely monitoring this data and has provided a dashboard that is accessible to the public. You can find the link on the COVID page of our website. We have replaced our dashboard with theirs because it is more comprehensive and aligns with the Florida Department of Health in Polk County. The FDOH tracks data by cases. We were tracking them by school community calls when schools were impacted by a positive case that resulted in quarantines. We still notify our communities when there is a case that impacts the school to maintain a high level of transparency. We have formed a great relationship with Dr. Joy Jackson and her team and remain in constant communication with them. Our team utilizes a weekly call with Dr. Jackson and Scott Schablum, who is her point man, to debrief and improve our systems. We remain absolutely committed to following CDC guidelines. It is a requirement to wear a face covering, to social distance as much as possible. We are constantly reminding one another to continually wash our hands and staying home when sick in order to reduce the spread of the virus. Staying home when we're sick is absolutely essential in this current environment. We are concerned about the flu season and the upcoming holidays. The DOH strongly encourages everyone to get a flu vaccine and follow CDC guidelines for family gatherings and travel. Please remember that large gatherings are not recommended at this time. Self-monitoring for symptoms is one of our most effective mitigation practices that effectively prevents the spread of COVID. We ask our parents, students, staff, and all stakeholders to daily monitor their symptoms. We encourage everyone to stay home if they have COVID-like symptoms and consult their medical provider. The next page, you're probably very, very familiar with these symptoms. These are the COVID symptoms, but we always believe it's important to review them, be aware of them, and you can see them there on the slide. Many symptoms mimic COVID. The key is to take note of any symptom that is out of our norm. If your symptoms feel different, stay home, call the doctor. Linda King of Risk Management asked us to share this resource that will be available to staff and students soon. Not only will it help them evaluate their symptoms, it will direct individuals to local medical resources and will provide information on how to apply for Kid Care, a government insurance program for uninsured students. If you have questions, please contact Linda King in Risk Management. It is worth reminding us all that COVID is highly contagious, and at times it is difficult to detect because it can transmit prior to symptoms, and there are individuals who can transmit it even though they have no symptoms at all and are asymptomatic. This is why it is absolutely essential to continue to practice the combination of all the mitigation strategies and be diligent with those. As you can see on the slide, there are 3 types of tests. The PCR test is the most accurate test to identify a positive COVID case. The antigen test, which is known as the rapid test, is the fastest, but it is less accurate. Its accuracy is excellent with a positive test, but there is a chance of a false negative. The antibody test will only tell you if you've had COVID, and we do not accept antibody test results at this time. Staff and students can be tested by their own doctor, of course, but thanks to our partnership with the Department of Health, our staff and students can also go to one of 3 testing sites in the district. Both PCR and antigen tests are available at these sites.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. We're going to talk briefly next about how our students and our staff members are experiencing COVID-19. If someone is experiencing symptoms of COVID-19, they should isolate at home and consider getting a COVID test. They will need to continue to isolate until their test results come back, even if they are feeling better. If they do test positive, they will need to continue to self-isolate. This slide includes some additional information isolation means. Staff members can return to work when at least 10 days have passed from the start of symptom onset or from the date they received their positive test results. A medical release is required for staff members to return to work. Staff members must be fever-free for 24 hours without the use of fever-reducing medication, and all of their symptoms must be resolved or improving. Students who appear sick at school will be sent to the isolation room to be evaluated by an LPN. All students with COVID-like symptoms will be sent home as a precaution. Students may return to school when they meet one of the 3 criteria that you see here. Students do not need a medical clearance from a doctor in order to return to school. We're going to next briefly review our procedures related to COVID-19 exposure. When someone tests positive for COVID-19, the first thing we need to do is determine who they have had close contact with. A close contact is anyone who was within 6 feet of the positive person for more than 15 minutes cumulatively during the day. Anyone who is considered a close contact will need to quarantine for 14 days from their last day of contact with that positive person. When evaluating exposure, it all boils down to duration and distance of contact. We know that there is some confusion regarding the differences between isolation and quarantine. Isolation is for individuals who are sick or who have tested positive for COVID-19 and they are in the process of recovering. Individuals who are isolating should rest, hydrate, and stay away from all other people and pets in their home if possible. If they must be around others, wearing a mask and maintaining social distance is also required. Quarantine is for individuals who have been exposed to someone who has tested positive for COVID-19. The exposed person needs to stay home, monitor their symptoms for 14 days, and make sure that they don't become sick. We've also had a lot of questions regarding why people have to stay out for so long. This is an example of how we count your quarantine days if you have come into contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19. Your quarantine will last for 14 days from your last day of contact with that positive person. If you remain asymptomatic for the entire 14 days, then you can return to work or school. If you develop symptoms during the 14-day period, you will need to stay out longer. What happens if the person that you are living with tests positive for COVID-19? If a staff or student who is living with someone and they test positive for COVID-19, that sick individual must complete their 10 days of isolation first before you can begin your 14-day quarantine period. In this scenario, a person would be out of work or school for a minimum of 24 days. Depending on the job role, a staff member may be able to work from home for some or all of this time.
Thank you, Sherry. The next 2 slides provide information about our protocols. Our schools and our district teams are working effectively and efficiently with the Department of Health to identify and mitigate positive cases. With time and experience, we have developed our expertise in utilizing and improving our processes, our protocols, and our practices. This has enabled the Department of Health to become more surgical with isolation and quarantine determinations, which has resulted in fewer students and staff exclusions while maintaining a high level of safety for all. We continue to work diligently to communicate effectively with our parents and school communities. We are focused and intentional in providing our students meaningful and relevant assignments when they are quarantined or isolated. And the CDC has allowances for some exposed employees to be considered critical infrastructure as determined by Polk County Public Schools in consultation with the Department of Health. This provision is optional for staff members who are willing to abide by a certain criteria for a modified quarantine. The Department of Health site visits, which is going very well, is another example of how we work closely with them to improve our systems and to keep everyone as safe as possible.
Finally, we're very excited to share with you information about our new COVID-19 call center. The COVID-19 call center will be housed at the Mark Wilcox Center. It will run from 12:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. It will be staffed by Kelly Services personnel and supervised by our nurses at the Mark Wilcox Center. You can see the phone number here, but please note that the call center will be closed during school holidays. The call center staff will make and receive calls as needed. We expect incoming calls to include general questions about COVID-19, as well as specific questions when students must be excluded from school due to illness or exposure. The hope is that the call center will help to alleviate some of the call volume that schools are experiencing after these events. In terms of outgoing calls, call center staff will help with contacting staff and students who are quarantined or isolated before they return to work or school. And they will also assist with contact tracing from the health department when that is needed. All calls to and from the call center will be monitored using our newly developed web-based logging application. Call volume will be closely monitored to see if services need to be adjusted. The call center is set to launch this coming Monday, which is November the 2nd. Hiring is underway at this time, our logging application is ready, and we completed staff training yesterday. If you have any additional questions about COVID-19 protocols or procedures, please reach out to the Mark Wilcox Center, to Risk Management, or to the Department of Health COVID information line. All of these are available to you from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. Thank you for your time, and we would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I know there's a lot of information, but if you have any questions. Mr. Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Superintendent. Mr. Hill, one of the things I've had some concerns about is I think there's a difference between folks who have COVID and they bring it to the school district. They acquire it outside the school district and they bring it, bring the virus in. And I noticed you said that the number of cases of, what do we call that, secondary exposure has been minimal, but do we have a sense of what that is exactly?
Well, yes, sir. As a matter of fact, I talked with Mr. Schablum today. He actually texted me last night and was looking at some of that data. And so on the way over, we discussed that. And basically, we've had 428 cases in all at this time. And of those 428, if you take out e-learners, we end up with about 404. And in those situations, the secondary transmissions, he said, can run up to about, it looked like about 25%. Keep in mind, this is new data to him, so he hasn't completely disaggregated it, and we haven't had a chance to fully look at it. But he had a couple of interesting points. He said if you, obviously, if you take out some of the athletic situations where they don't always get to isolate and they don't always get to wear masks in every situation, that number actually goes down significantly, which indicates that in the classroom environments and in those places that we completely control. And when I say completely control, obviously we're never going to meet perfection, but we are very focused about making sure those protocols are in place. Then it really does impact and minimize the spread. And so those secondary numbers are relatively low. So the good news is well over 75% to maybe even a little higher we're moving through our system without experiencing secondary contacts.
And I have a follow-up question. That's great. When you have the data, could we get that, please? I'd like to see it.
Yeah. I think keep in mind,
Yeah.
I got a little delicate dance last time on the data. As I tell everyone, there's more than one agency that's working on this situation. So the Department of Health owns their data, and we're always very mindful of that. But I believe Scott would, I'll ask him about that. So I don't want to say a definitive yes, but obviously I've given you, and he did say I could share that with you today. so.
Okay. Did I see that there were, oh, yeah, here. Typically, there are 8 to 15 new positive cases per day?
Yeah, but let me quantify that a little bit. I didn't put it in the slide because the slides are so dense and with so much information. When the team was timing me in terms of delivery, they're like, "You're going well over if you start talking about that." So here's what's interesting. Last week we had a day where we only had 1 case, which was an awesome day. Yesterday we had 14 cases. Of those 14 cases, 7 of them did not have a direct impact on our schools. And the additional 7 we did not have to exclude whole classes. So that means their ability, the Department of Health's ability, based on our improvement and working with them to give them the information they need, they have now become much more surgical in regards to exclusions and quarantine. So on any given day, that number may be a little higher, but the good news is oftentimes those cases are not having an impact on our campuses. And also one last thing, sorry.
Sure.
Obviously, when e-learners end up with a positive case, they typically do not impact our schools as well.
So I'm having a little trouble with the numbers. Help me out, please. So you said that we had 400 total cases since the school district started, since the school year began?
Yeah, he gave me the number 428.
But that's not going to tie very well with the 8 per day.
Well, let me quantify the 8 to 15. I haven't adjusted that number from when I put the PowerPoint together. So when we talk, it's like how many per day? I think roughly 8 to 15. It can go upwards of 15, obviously, so that's just a general range. So it can't go above that,
Okay.
which will make those numbers vary. So I will endeavor to get an exact, for folks like yourself, sir, I will endeavor to get a more exact range for you.
Oh, thank you. I
apologize for
appreciate that. And you know, my concern all along has been not the number of cases that we've had since school started, but more
Right.
importantly, how many current cases do we have?
Right.
And I'm sure you don't have a sense of that. Maybe you do.
Well, you and I had spoken about that, and now that they have the dashboard, one of the things that I was planning on doing for December was trying to get an accurate account of what is actual as of any given day. So one of the things that the dashboard that the Florida Department of Health is providing is they do give you a range for a week that are current as opposed to the accumulative. So there's 2 columns there, and one of them gets you much more closer to the data
Okay.
that you're inquiring about.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Fortney?
Thank you, Mr. Hill, a personal thank you for chasing down every singletary question that people have presented to me. You and Ms. Kelly both, I appreciate you. I'm just curious why we don't do our own dashboard, and I know you said that the state is doing it, but I've come to not trust their numbers, and they don't update it, but every 10 days? And then I have a follow-up.
Okay. I believe they update it every Tuesday, and we are working. We had a community member that has emailed me a number of times and been trying to work on, at the very beginning of the transition, when the Florida Department of Health put up their dashboard, there were a few cases from the beginning of the year that did not seem to appear in that data. So we have been working with the team over at the Florida Department of Health, Scott and his team, and they're trying to get that rectified. So I know Rachel has worked diligently with him to try to get that number rectified. And just for clarification, in regards to our data, just remember, our data was based on if a school made a call out to the community, it meant that there was at least one quarantine due to a COVID case. And so those numbers would be very much different than theirs.
So let me try to tie this into something else.
Yes, ma'am.
The bottom line is we have COVID cases and it is easily transferable. It is highly contagious. And I am being told that we have ADA approved staff being put back into brick and mortar. And we have kids coming back brick and mortar. Social distancing is probably going to be an issue. We have people that can't send their kids or can't go in. I've heard from numerous of them, from Fort Meade to Davenport to Lakeland. My concern, and I've shared it with a couple of people, is it's going to push even more people to Florida virtual, and I want to see us take a stand on the e-learning plan to accommodate those folks at high risk countywide. Can you?
Ms. Fortney, we cannot hear you right now. I don't know if you hit mute or something happened here. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we can hear you now.
I'm so sorry. All of this, you know, we know we have COVID in the classroom. I'm not sure where I cut off. My internet is terrible. And we know that it is coming in from the outside, and that means it's coming from our schools back outside. And we've got ADA approved staff being told to come back into brick and mortar, that it just can't do it. We've got kids that are, I'm afraid e-learning is going to run out, and we're going to lose those kids to Florida virtual because they just cannot afford the risk because of their family situation. I have former students that have reached out to me, and they don't want to, but they feel like they're being forced. And I feel like we need to, you know, take a stand on our e-learning plan to accommodate those families and staff past the first semester. And I was wondering if you could speak to that, because the risk is not worth the reward for a lot of our kids and staff.
I think the thing we have to consider, and certainly, you know, your concerns are duly noted. I'll make some notes of that. But, you know, we continue to work closely with Ms. Porteous and Human Resources in terms of the ADA compliant and that dynamic tension that exists when students become, you know, are coming back to the campus, which obviously creates a need for teachers to be at the campus. And so much of what we do, obviously, is student-driven. But I know that Ms. Porteous and her team have worked diligently to set up those guidelines, working closely with our principals, keeping them up to date. In regards to your concern about e-learning and the possibility of losing students to Florida virtual, we will obviously, there's no, you know, we're still, there's a lot of unknown. We don't know exactly how many will come back. We know some have been coming back, and we still are kind of waiting to see. You know, we're obviously going to take our, we're going to do what the state, you know, asks us to do in regards to the future. So we will continue to just work very closely as a team. One of the things that this COVID has done for us as a system is we work very closely within departments now. You know, our departments connect, and we work very closely because you have to tap into the expertise from all of your leaders and departments. And so we'll you know, continue to work diligently to try to put the best plan in place, to do our very best to address that and to deal with those situations as they arise. Yes, ma'am. I can see your hand up.
I just want to say that just by your statement, we're going to do what the state says, and I'm going to urge this board, the district, and our constituents who want e-learning to stay through the second semester to email the DOE, the governor, the commissioner of education, your representatives, and to continue that e-learning funding for us, because the risk to our family's health from this virus is just not worth it.
Yes, ma'am. And of course, when I was discussing, or I mentioned the state, I was talking about the Florida Department of Education and their guidance, their guidelines, and their mandates.
Thank you. And just for clarification, the executive order actually goes through first semester only. We don't know if there's going to be a second executive order yet. We will wait to see what happens, and if there is one, what it pertains to regarding our students and our staff. But we're moving forward with making sure we educate our students. We're moving forward with making sure we provide students that are returning back to campus, we provide them with a certified teacher, and making sure that we have teachers in front of them. As you know, there's an issue, not just in Polk County, but there's an issue nationwide regarding subs. But, you know, we're making sure our first priority is education, and we're making sure to provide that. So we'll keep the board abreast of what the next executive order will come forward. We will probably, I would think, we will hear something after Thanksgiving, if not before. But we'll make sure you get that information.
Ma'am, Mrs. Bird, I totally agree, but I just want us to be proactive as, you know, a county and a district. Let them know how you feel.
Thank you. Your point is taken. I see Ms. Reynolds, then Ms. Cunningham.
Thank you. As far as the call center goes, have we updated our system at all? Because I know when we first had the e-learning call center back that first week in August, we would have people waiting for an hour or two, and then all of a sudden the call would be dropped. So I just want to make sure, and that may be more of a Tina question, but I just want to make sure that we've fixed those kinks so that we don't have the same thing happening with, I don't know if she's in here or not. So that we don't have the same things happening with our
We have been working
call center.
closely, I'm sorry.
Okay.
We have been working closely with Dr. Barrios' department, and she has helped us to install phone lines and phones in the new call center for Mark Wilcox Center. We based the model for that call center off of the bus call center
Okay.
that we operated at the beginning of the year. So hopefully, we're going to anticipate a smooth start next week.
The bus call center seemed to be much more functional, I think, as far as just getting through. So that's definitely good news that it's
We have
modeled
learned a lot
after
from
that
Mr. Davis, and he's been very helpful in this process.
one. Okay, awesome, thank you. The second question I have is, you mentioned a more surgical approach, which we discussed a little bit the other day. I know at the beginning of the year, if one student went out, they quarantined the whole class, which when you're at a high school and they have 7 classes, we were quarantining some days 100 kids just because one person tested positive. As we're using a more surgical approach, are we seeing any uptick in the secondary cases or anything like that? Or are we finding that they still seem to be pretty contained at the surgical approach is working?
I think the surgical approach is working and maintaining the safety and the well-being. But I certainly can discuss that in more in depth with Mr. Schablem, and we're talking to each other on a daily basis, and we as I stated, we have a conference call each Friday, so that's something that I can drill down on.
That's definitely good. I mean, you figure you have 1 or 2 cases at a high school and that could wipe out
Right.
half of your campus almost.
I will
So
say this. I
it,
will say this.
Definitely is nice.
Let me quantify the process for more surgical. At the end of the day, the Department of Health, you know, Dr. Jackson and her team, their priority is safety and the health and the well-being. And obviously, we want that as well. That's our top priority. We also have a mandate to educate our students, and so we work very well with them. And if there's any gray area, they're going to side on safety and caution. So, but we've gained a lot of knowledge and expertise in terms of providing them what they need, which is excellent seating charts and you know, so they can figure out distances and time and how long were you exposed or how close were you to somebody with. So it is getting better and it's improving. And I hope to see the secondary, you know, cases go down. continue to be at a minimal.
And my last question, and this is getting a little bit away from COVID, but obviously when we're encouraging people to stay home when they're sick or if they have a sore throat or things like that, are we still monitoring truancy issues? I know that's typically school is where we find those kids when they're not showing up. So how are we still working with the Sheriff's Department on truancy issues and that type of thing?
Michelle Townley, along with teaching and learning, along with Tina Barrios and her team, DJ Dines, working with schools to really try to really find continue to have a nice, or not a nice, but a strong, structured approach to dealing with attendance. But we know it's a great question because it's a different dynamic, different day and time at the moment. So monitoring attendance is certainly different than it used to be, but I'll have to make a note of that and see how it's working with our truancy. What I'm hearing is, the schools are doing a good job of contacting and staying in contact with our students and monitoring the days when they're out. And we're also trying to be careful not to, we want them to come to school, but at the same time, if they are sick and have COVID-like symptoms, we know in this environment, we need them to stay home. So it is a dynamic. There's a dynamic tension there for
It's
sure.
definitely a fine balance. I just want to
Yeah.
make sure that we don't have any students slipping through the crack because
Absolutely.
they call us one day and say, oh, I have a sore throat, and then they
Right.
don't show up for another.
No,
10 or 12
they have
days and
they still have a
we
way
don't
to,
know what
we
happens
still
to 'em.
monitor
Okay.
attendance. And I think your front line is obviously your staff, your school staff, and those that, leaders that are, that's their responsibility is to help monitor that attendance, so.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Reynolds, our school social workers also continue to support their schools for attendance issues, and they'll help their schools if they do have difficulty reaching out to a parent or have difficulty finding a student. Your social worker will be able to assist you in that matter as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. I was going to throw that in there for them because I know they're
Thank
out
you.
there working diligently. And just as before, so the board and Ms. Reynolds will know, before we noticed we didn't have students, we had our SROs and we had, some of our assistant principals and we had the social workers. We were all going out trying to do that. As we close into an end of a 9 weeks, that's something we're going to look at. Also, you brought up the point of students that are struggling and not doing well. We had that conversation. And those are going to be children that we contact parents because if they're not doing well, we really need to encourage them back into a brick and mortar setting so that they don't fall any further behind because 1 or 2 months, it can take kids a full year to make it up. And I'm talking 180 days. So we want to make sure we're doing what's right for children when it comes to education. Okay. So I saw Ms. Cunningham, Ms. Miller, and then Ms. Fields. Hope y'all remember that.
Thank you. I just want to say quickly, thank you. This was a great update. Appreciate your time and talent. There's a lot of moving parts, as we know, as we move forward with COVID. And obviously, it's not something we've been through before, so we're kind of learning as we go. And I just appreciate the time and effort that everybody is putting in into all of our schools as well. One exciting thing to me is noting that we're going to be having the call center up and running, and quite frankly, I mean Monday, that's right around the corner. So I think that's great, and I hope that we can get this information publicly on our website and maybe emails out to folks just to let the community know, our staff know, most importantly, our administrators and so forth, that this is coming, because it's really important that if you have a question and you're just uncertain, because so many have been there, it's great. It's a little, kind of wish we'd had that the first day
We
of
do
school,
too. Yes,
but
ma'am.
here we are. It's okay, it's okay. And Mr. Davis, you always do such a wonderful job, with the call center that you put together for the beginning of the school year. So we appreciate that and modeling this after that. So I just encourage employees, families to call if they have questions about that and be patient. Just because the call center is up and running the first day, we just need to exercise some grace and some flexibility and some patience as we work through maybe what might be some of the bugs as we get started on Monday. But kudos to whomever came up with the idea, and thank you for providing this. I think it's much needed for our Polk County community, so thank you.
Yes, ma'am. They've done a great job. And we are working closely with Ms. Pleasant
To get
make
that
sure
out.
it's
Thank you, Mr.
promoted.
Hill.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Miller, and then Ms. Fields.
Hi, do we have, I know the health department keeps a database of positive cases. Do we have a database that shows quarantines, like numbers of quarantines in areas or regions or schools themselves?
Not at this time. I mean, I've talked to DJ Dines about putting together the framework to pull that data.
I just think that would be helpful. I mean, especially when we
Absolutely.
talk about, I talked to a principal where there's over 100 kids out on quarantine. We started talking about the ramifications of standardized testing with students who aren't getting instruction because we're quarantining half schools at one time. I think that would be important to collect that data to have.
It is important, and we are, had that conversation with Ms. Dines, and we will be looking at how to, because we're gonna have to obviously account for any absences. And so we are gonna work at that and develop that.
Thank you. My other question is, I know we had a large shift in staff that went back into the classroom because we've had change in e-learners coming back into brick and mortar. Is there a mandate that everyone comes back in January? Are we waiting? For some reason, there's an understanding that everyone would be returning in January. So there's kind of a, I don't want to create any more of a hysteria on what mandates are when we don't know that for a fact.
So, Ms. Miller, and the reason people are probably thinking that because that order ends in December, the executive order does end in December. However, I'll tell you, but as students are matriculating back from e-learning back on campus, we find it that teachers are actually teaching better when they're on campus providing those services. So we have teachers that are actually returning because we do have students where their parents have indicated when, in that time period. So far, I think we're at right around 8,000, and they're still enrolling and cleaning up that data because they actually come back, I think, the 28th, where they report back. But we're at 8,000, so we have to have a teacher in front of those children, as their parents have indicated. But when you're talking about where everybody's saying in January, I think because the order actually sunsets in December. And so if we get a new order, then we'll let you know of that. But until then, that's what we know as of this time, because that order will sunset.
Thank you. I think mainly on that side, it was parents that are successful with e-learning and they want to continue it and they're afraid they won't have that option. So we'll be able to provide them with the extension information closer to January.
Exactly. We need to
Okay.
see what's going to come down from another executive order.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fields, then Mr. Townsend.
I think you might have answered one of my questions. You said that there are 8,000 students going back to school on the 28th?
That's our rough number right now, and it could go a little higher as there are some, they know the indication, they have not fully enrolled them. But right now, we know of 8,000.
So with the 8,000 that we are going to have going back tomorrow, I believe tomorrow is the 28th, and the ones that we currently have in the schools, is there an estimated total of kids that are actually back on school campuses versus the e-learners?
I should have known that question was going to come to
I'm
me.
sorry.
And I'm trying to remember what my number was last time and add 8,000 to it. But I can tell you that when we looked at the total with charters included, we were right around 103. But I can get that number exactly for you. I don't want to throw out a false positive there. So let me get that number for the actual, including the 8,000 where we are for you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bird. And has anybody thought about doing some type of survey to find out feedback from the employees as it relates to being back on the campuses? And are we doing a good job? Are there things that we can do better? What's been their biggest challenge? Just so we can kind of see what we might need to improve or what we're doing well. And the same thing for e-learning, getting feedback from parents. I know personally at Girls Inc., there are some challenges with e-learning. It's a very difficult task, and I commend all of the staff, as well as the students that's really doing that each and every day. But I think it'd be nice to know what are some weaknesses, what are some strengths, and what are some things that we can do better. And then the last thing is, Mr. Hill, I don't need this today, but if you could maybe send me the outline of quarantine, what does that involve? Once a classroom has someone who's tested positive and the quarantine process starts, how does that work? Who gets communicated first? Because we had a young lady who came from one of the schools to Girls Inc., and they had told her mom that they had a case that was positive, and she came on our vehicle to Girls Inc., and the mom rushed to get her. So I think it'd be interesting to know who is communicating and how quickly is that done. If you don't mind, I'd appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. Be glad to get that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Townsend?
In the 428 number, do you have that broken down by staff versus students? Is that only a student
I
number?
was driving when I received that number to the meeting today, so we haven't disaggregated that, but we certainly can.
Right. Do you have, so you don't have a number on how many staff have had it so far this year?
No, sir, not at the moment. I mean, I can't pull one. We can obviously go to the data and pull it because they're posting they are categorizing them on the Florida Department of Health's dashboard.
Okay, but we're not keeping that ourselves internally. That's just being.
We can. I have not put a report together to do that. No, sir. But
Okay.
we are monitoring and listening to the numbers, but I haven't put an actual report together to have that. But certainly we will, we have different ways that we can track that.
Okay, I think that would be a helpful number to
Okay.
have, even if it's going to be difficult to be verified. Okay. Secondly, can we elaborate a little bit on the sub/staffing issues as a whole? I think there's the health concern, but there's also the capacity concern. I mean, we're burning up a lot of people. I know my son's psychology teacher left shortly after school started, and I think he went essentially 2 weeks without an assignment in that class. Can someone give us some sort of sense of how that's playing out and what our plan is, if we have any? It's my understanding that we have a lot of coaches covering a lot of classrooms and a lot of administrators as well. Is that correct?
It's all hands on deck at the schools, absolutely. So if there is coverage needed, I know Ms. Porteous and her team have worked very diligently with Kelly Services to try to improve and try to get more subs engaged and involved. But in terms of the practical day in, day out, schools are being very innovative and creative in how they take care of that, and they're utilizing our personnel. The good news is, because when students are out and they shift to some of the e-learning, obviously a teacher that's exposed can do some of that as well. So there's a variety of ways that we've been contending it. Our schools have done a tremendous job in terms of making sure that we have those classrooms have somebody working with our students and have a teacher in the classroom.
Let me
it's
clarify.
good
I
stuff.
mean, I'm not trying to give you a hard time about it. Like there are compliance requirements.
Absolutely, yes.
And you have to be operating the best you can. I'm actually quite sympathetic to what,
Yeah,
I just
absolutely.
would like to know,
It's a challenge, yeah.
like, every day, if there, how many subs short are we on a general day? Like, are we covering the openings with sub? Like what's the gap? Like, say there's countywide 200 teachers out at any given day. I don't know if that's a good
Right.
number or not. Are we able to have the people? Is Kelly Services able to cover that 200? If they're not, how are we covering the gap? Like, can you explain that a bit?
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. And I'm going to ask Ms. Porteous, because she's close to that. But meanwhile, while she was walking up, what I will say about that, when you're talking about subs, this is just an issue nationwide.
Oh, I
There's
know.
nobody in that pool
No,
right
I
now.
know,
Be very-
which is why I want to try to
Right.
show the specificity of the problem here, so that people understand what the cost of this is.
Exactly. So I would tell you that making sure that our students receive education, you do have some of our deans and our coaches going in. They are, certified teachers as standby, and to ensure that the parents have a teacher and we have instruction being delivered. So I would tell you that's why if you do hear of other administrators going in, that is true. Even some of our principals have volunteered to go into their classrooms to ensure instruction is going on, which is is why we're looking at how we're moving people back into buildings now, so that we have teachers in front of those children. But I will let Ms. Porter, since she came up, she can address any of the numbers and the percentages you were asking about with Kelly subs.
And you don't have to be precise. I'm just trying to get a sense of how close we are to covering whatever the gap is each day.
So I will say that there is a gap, as you have identified in your question. In talking to the directors of Kelly subs, I would say that they are probably at about maybe 50% capacity. A lot of their subs have the same concerns that a lot of our teachers have. And it really just depends on the area. In addition to that, a lot of their subs have also been quarantined. So as Mr. Hill has discussed, when a school or when a classroom is quarantined, sometimes that impacts a sub in that classroom as well. And so that lessens their pool of available subs that can then pick up other jobs as well. So it's about 50% overall. In terms of the position, in terms of the people that are available compared to the people that were available last year.
Okay, so Kelly Services is at about half capacity for filling what they're.
Correct.
So how does that translate into open spots? Like how many, just in a rough sense, how many positions a day are they coming up short with us now?
So
again,
I would
just
say,
ballpark.
it really depends, because sometimes when we have teachers that go out on COVID leave, they can easily transition to e-learning, and they do e-learning, and then that doesn't require a sub. However, you may have someone that's out on FMLA leave, family medical leave, and so that 12-week period or up to 12-week period may then require a sub. So it really depends. I would say generally if we float, let's say 100 vacancies a day for subs or those that need subs, then probably about 50% of those are then covered, and then schools fill in the gaps.
Okay.
So that means coaches.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. So then that means coaches, your academic coaches, anyone on staff at that point, paras as well. You know that, I'm not sure if you know, but we did increase the para sub rate to $30 an hour, or $30 a day, not $30 an hour, excuse me. 30, right. We did increase that to $30 a day to ensure that they were adequately compensated for at least pitching in as well. So we're trying to be creative, and schools have the flexibility as well to be creative about filling in those positions.
Again, everybody's in a very difficult spot here. I just wanted to be able to articulate how difficult it is.
Yes, it is exceedingly difficult. And I think as Mrs. Bird articulated earlier, it's statewide. And so I'm talking to colleagues in Miami-Dade and Broward and Palm Beach, and they are, I don't want to say worse off than us, but they're not as cohesive, I think, as we are as a group.
Okay, one last quick question. Like there have been other counties. I know Orange County shut a school down. There's been a number of schools shut down. It seems unlikely. It seems like somewhere we've made a decision where there really is no threshold at which we will shut a school down. If I'm wrong about that, is there one? I mean, what's the trigger for that?
So I'll answer that. And various leaders in their district have various, you got one district that does have a percentage of how many kids, and then they'll shut the school down. And I just talked to Orange, I just talked to Barbara yesterday. And some counties, what they're doing is they're looking at how many, if it's a lot of secondary transmission as well, do they shut down? Because we really quarantine, if you remember in the beginning, and I said once we know of a positive, or two positive in there, they really go and spread that net pretty wide to quarantine. That's what we've been doing, and I think that's been effective for us, where we didn't have to go in and shut down totally. Where some of your other districts, they hadn't spread the net that wide, and when they find out, it then can develop into the secondary. Not saying that that's what they've had in Orange, but I do know it really has been going through the school versus us. When we hear about it, the net's out there. And I told you in the beginning, that was an issue with me. Well, okay, we're putting everybody out that's not even testing positive. But now I see why we were doing that in the beginning, to spread that net, to protect having to shut down a school totally.
Right. It sort of sounds like a staggered start, backwards way.
Sort of.
Like it's sort of accomplishing the same goal. So,
It is.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. I believe Ms. Fortney had a follow-up. Am I correct? Ms. Fortney?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'd like to go to the root of this whole problem with lack of staff, et cetera. And some of our people, as Mr. Townsend suggested, I know I've lost some friends, they just up and quit. It was a struggle for them to make that decision, but we're losing really good teachers because of the stress and the demands that we're putting on them. And I know you spoke about our social workers, Ms. Scott, helping out with attendance. I want to remind everybody, I think we have 21, correct me if I'm wrong. We're still lacking in some mental health supports in our SBRT. I think we're just stressing our staff to its limit, and they're drawing a line in the sand, and I don't know how we'll ever rebound from this as far as replacing experienced teachers.
Thank you, Ms. Fortney. And as you heard Ms. Porteous say, it's statewide, it's nationwide. So I think that's going throughout the nation. It's what's happening out, even at the college level, is what we're seeing in that realm as well. So
It's just depressing for me. I'm sure it is you too as a teacher.
yes, it is. Okay, thank you. I want to address Ms. Fields. You did ask about the numbers, and we're up to on campus about 59% on campus now, with a total of 56,899. And on August the 10th, we had 36,583 on campus. So it is growing. And what I'll do, Board, if you would like for me to send you those numbers at the end of the week, what returns back, we will have that prepared for you, and I'll email that to you as well. Thank you. You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, and we appreciate the update for this month. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next item you have coming before you is Ms. Porteous, and she was bringing a revised job description.
Could have stayed. Good afternoon, board members. The item before you is a revised job description for the teacher interventionist. You'll notice that we're just really aligning the job description with certifications and or evaluating the rating requirements for the instructional coaches. Any questions? Yes,
Mr. Townsend?
That was sort of is this basically being rebuilt to deal with the reading, what is the word for it?
Endorsement.
The endorsement that was sort of disruptive for a period of time last year. What's the status of how that's played out with our people? Like how many were able to get it? How are we doing on that as a whole?
So I can find out the update across the district. We did speak with the Florida Department of Education maybe 2 weeks ago, and they did say that as of right now, the reading endorsement will be extended, or teachers will be allowed to try to get the reading endorsement through June 30th of 2021. They are doing that on a case-by-case basis. And so that will be, I think, beneficial for a lot of our staff members that have not yet become reading endorsed.
Ms. Miller?
I just had some questions from staff that are working on that endorsement that may go past. There was a recent cutoff where letters are going out of some kind, and they're like, I'm almost done, I'll be done at the end of this month, but the letters would still, because of the cutoff, would still go out to parents.
So it's the out-of-field letters. It's
Yes.
just, it notifies the parents that their teacher or one of their students' teachers are currently out of field. That is a standard letter that we send out. Excuse me. I talked to Mrs. Yoakum about it actually earlier today, and we thought, or she suggested some language go in that says essentially that even though they're out of field, they are working on
Right.
getting in field. So we're looking to see if the letter is actually from Florida Department of Education, or is it something that we generate in-house, and if we can amend it to include the language that she suggested.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea because teachers are already feeling the pressure of that endorsement, and the ones that are really trying to complete it, for parents to get a letter saying that without any explanation, most parents will just think their child's teacher is not up to par, not doing what other teachers are doing. So I think that would be helpful. And on that form, I shared with Ms. Townley, on the letter that goes out, or what the form that comes to the teacher, it'll list in there about the certification. It'll list at the very last column any students they have that are in Tier 3 of MTSS. that data, which I learned today, is driven from the STAR score at the beginning of the school year. So these teachers are seeing 5 or 6 kids at Tier 3 MTSS, but they're not in Tier 3 right now. Like, I don't know where that column comes from, and I know it just goes, Ms. Townley told me today, it just goes to the teachers. But is there a way to explain that? Because they're thinking, oh, I'm supposed to be in Tier 3, we're not even close to Tier 3. Like, how that's generated, is there an explanation somewhere for that?
Sure, we can go ahead and explain
Okay.
that to the teachers that have some questions about it, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Porteous. The next item coming before you is a report and an update from our Safe Schools. You have Captain Seymour and Mike Wiggins coming before you. Board members, you receive the document. It is stamped confidential, we normally keep this confidential, as it is regarding any of the information pertaining to our safety for our students and our schools and community.
Good afternoon. I just have a brief statement, and then Captain Seymour will go into her presentation. As required by Florida law, I'm reporting to the board that the school security risk assessment and the district best practices assessments was completed by the established due dates. These annual assessments are mandated by Florida law and were designed to address the efforts of the school district with regard to the compliance with Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act and the recommendations of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Commission, as well as best practices related to school security and safety. The information contained in the assessments is confidential and exempt from release as a public record. However, a copy is available in my office for your review if you require it. Some of the positive measures that were in place at the time of the risk assessments included fencing and upgrades to intercom PA systems, as well as the Guardian program, School Resource Officer Deputy program, which provides a state-mandated safe school officer at every school site. We have fencing nearly complete at all of our schools. Single-point access with control upgrades, which is our buzzer systems, is an ongoing process and nearly complete. All of our emergency drill requirements were met at the time of the assessments, as well as compliance with the state mandate that we conduct those drills. We are still upgrading single-point access at schools, and the Fortify Florida tool is promoted on campus as required by Florida law. We have a visitor management system operational at each campus, and our security camera installation and upgrade is nearly complete. We have one school which still requires cameras. Other than that, all of our schools have IP cameras, and there's an upgrade in progress for the remaining campuses. We have a public safety Knox box installation project complete at all of our campuses. We have behavioral threat assessment teams in place at all of our schools, and a state mandated review of our threat assessment process was conducted and was successful. We have adopted an active assailant response plan within the district, and we have a district reunification plan that has been finalized. Overall, the district has responded well regarding implementing safety and security mandates, and I think the challenge going forward is the funding to maintain the programs that we have in place and the equipment that we have currently in our schools.
Are there any questions for Mr. Wiggins? Okay, so now we will go over to Captain Seymour.
Our presentation is not here, so I'm going to just go through this report. You can follow along, but I do not have the PowerPoint. I'm going to speak about major accomplishments and programs the Office of Safe Schools has facilitated over the 1920 school year. I've provided each of you a copy of it so you can follow along. Page 4, coronavirus. In March 2019, students transitioned into e-learning platforms. School resource deputies, officers, GRIP deputies were used to conduct well-being checks on students and parents to address any needs they may have had. They also assisted at designated meal sites and device handouts throughout the county. They were hands-on with assisting with meals and devices, as well as a security presence at the sites. Gaggle monitoring is designed to monitor school-based drives, files, and documents that are accessible by students in an effort to detect early safety concerns. During the 1920 school year, the Office of Safe Schools responded to 89 gaggle reports. Of the 89, 16 students were taken in for a Baker Act. On pages 5 and 6, the Florida Safe Schools Assessment Tool requires a campus tour by local first responding agencies. This tour provides first responders the opportunity to familiarize themselves with the campus and provide assistance in planning for a major incident. A comprehensive list of law enforcement and fire contacts were provided to all schools by the Office of Safe Schools. All schools completed their campus tour and were able to submit the FSATs on time. The Office of Safe Schools continued to partner with the Director of Student Services, Peace River Center, Crisis Team Coordinator, and the Mental Health Coordinator to ensure information sharing and cooperation in addressing potential risks. Polk County Public Schools threat management procedures consist of 3 color-coded teams, with orange team being the highest level of risk. It is mandated that a member of law enforcement attend all orange team meetings. GRIP deputies are assigned to all charter schools and elementary schools that do not have a school resource officer or deputy assigned. All schools coordinate orange team meetings through the Office of Safe Schools. Athletics, countywide football game security is determined by the Director of Safe Schools and the County Athletic Director to create a process that determines security staffing needed for each game to provide adequate security and safety. On page 7, each school year, the Office of Safe Schools conducts unannounced lockdown drills at over 30 pre-selected schools in order to assess emergency readiness and offer guidance in areas of deficiency. We continue to partner with Navigate 360, it's formerly Safe Plans, to facilitate the collection of safety-related information, organization, and electronic access to emergency plans. All law enforcement and fire personnel in the county have access to this information via the Emergency Response Information Portal, or ERIP. Over the 1920 school year, all charter schools were added to ERIP as well. On page 8, for a timely response, the district created a reunification response team comprised of over 80 district employees. A tabletop exercise was held at the RP Funding Center in September of 2019 to train and simulate a true reunification. Feedback was gathered, and one main takeaway from the exercise was the notification process. Now all members are on School Messenger and will receive a phone call, a text, and an email with notification of where to respond should we ever activate the reunification team. BrandWatch is the statewide social media monitoring tool used to monitor school media, social media, and provide alerts associated with threats toward Polk County schools. During the 1920 school year, the Office of Safe Schools addressed 5 BrandWatch alerts. Page 9. My office continues to partner with Heartland Crime Stoppers for anonymous reporting of threats, suspicious incidents, and criminal activity within Polk County schools. We have displayed the "If you see something, say something" signage in all of the schools. On page 10 and 11, this section discusses the training and communication between the Office of Safe Schools and all 8 municipal agencies that we contract with. Every year, the Office of Safe Schools hosts an annual training that discusses updates to procedures as well as new mandates from the state. This year, it was held via Zoom. Training was provided by the Safe Schools analyst, Shelby Brooks, Christy Olson and Jim Maxwell on behavioral mental health support, Jim Chulness on the new ICOM system, and our legal department discussed risk protection orders. All PCSO school resource deputies also attended an autism awareness for the school setting training on August 7th. This training was brought in from the Orlando area and paid for by Polk County Sheriff's Office. On page 12, Teen Court is a juvenile diversion program based on the philosophy that juvenile offenders are less likely to reoffend when punishment is decided by a jury of their peers. The 10th Judicial Circuit provides this program for juvenile offenders who commit crimes, admit their guilt, and consent to participate in the program. Sorry, it's a lot of reading. Student volunteers have been trained to perform the roles of defense attorney, prosecutor, clerk, and bailiff. The role of judiciary is performed by an actual judge or attorney magistrate. Volunteers develop strong leadership skills, receive community service hours, and gain a working knowledge of their local government. Diversion allows juvenile offenders to bypass traditional court processes, thereby eliminating a criminal record. On page 13, the Explorer Post is a chartered and sanctioned program of the Boy Scouts of America. 15 full-time deputies from the School Resource Unit volunteer and are active as advisors for the Explorer Post. Extra education and after-school activities with each student provides a stronger community relationship and changes the lives of these students that can't be measured. During the 1920 school year, 393 volunteer hours were accomplished at several community events. One major event that the Explorers participate in is Operation Pop Top, which utilizes an Explorer to combat the illegal sale of alcohol to minors. Explorers work with deputies to conduct weekly compliance checks at local convenience stores. During the 1920 school year, 26 operations were held, wherein 278 stores were checked for the compliance countywide. Of the 278 stores checked, we had 10 violations that resulted in arrest. Page 17. School crossing guards received 2 hours of state-structured classroom instruction with an additional 2 days of on-the-job training in accordance with the Ramon Turnquest Act. Additionally, school crossing guards receive an annual 2-hour recertification at the beginning of each new school year. Currently, we have 124 staffed crossings throughout the county, with a total of 133 crossing guards providing service for an estimated 21,000 students per month. Pages 19 through 26 is a overview of the Gang Resistance Intervention Program. This unit implements innovative juvenile crime prevention and intervention efforts by providing a gateway towards successful academic and career opportunities in order to divert at-risk or gang-affiliated youth. The goals of GRIP include a progressive restorative approach involving 4 key elements: the harm caused by delinquent behavior and gang affiliation, the needs of the at-risk youth, the needs of the community and potential victims involved, and the obligations of the at-risk youth in regards to their previous actions. During the 1920 school year, GRIP met with gang members or associates 311 times and met with at-risk students over 1,800 times. As a result of GRIP interactions, there were 17 student interventions that resulted in comprehensive positive behavior reversals. In 2015, the Office of Safe Schools attended the joint meeting with the Polk County Courthouse, and this meeting included the Honorable Judge Hofstad, Director of the State Attorney's Office, Chief and Assistant Chief of the Division of Juvenile Justice, and the Office of the Public Defender. Probation changes were proposed and agreed upon unanimously, currently known as GRIP sanctions. You can review GRIP sanctions on pages 20 and 21. There are also stories for your review of those positive reinforcements with student stories. On page 22 is the statistical data of interventions in graph form. Currently, the GRIP unit are closely mentoring 210 at-risk youth. These range from gang members and associates, risk protection order respondents, GRIP sanction, probation juveniles, juveniles at risk that are due to behavioral and/or environmental or societal concerns, or it can also be a combination of each. Monitoring and mentoring involves frequently visiting each at-risk youth at their school or at their home, or both. These contacts ensure the youth is attending classes, checking their grades, and checking with school administration on their behavior. During the regular interactions, GRIP deputies praise the at-risk youth on their accomplishment and discuss any conflicts. Pages 27 through 29. The Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act addresses several issues related to school safety and school violence that provide law enforcement, courts, and schools with the tools to enhance public safety. The Act codifies the Office of Safe Schools within the DOE as a central repository for the best practices, training standards, and compliance regarding school safety and security. The Office of Safe Schools' mission is to support the district in providing a safe learning environment for students and educators. Threat assessments take place immediately following the report of a school-based threat and seeks to determine no impending risk exists toward the school staff or students. The school resource officer or deputy investigates the facts surrounding the reported threat and will determine any further involvement. During the 1920 school year, the Office of Safe Schools received 285 documented threat assessments involving students or a public school. Risk protection orders allow law enforcement to petition a court to temporarily prevent persons from accessing firearms when the person poses significant danger to himself or others. School resource deputies and officers utilize RPOs as an extra layer of protection when someone makes a significant verbal or written threat toward a student, staff, or school population. During the 1920 school year, law enforcement petitioned and was granted 61 risk protection orders relative to school threats. All of these RPOs were against students. The RPO law also allows law enforcement agencies to petition the court for an extension that is due to expire. An extended RPO has the same condition as the original and is valid for 12 more months. During the 1920 school year, we petitioned for 4 extensions, and they were granted by the judge. On page 30, there is an overview of GRIP statistical data over the past 4 school years.
Thank you. And I want to thank you. I remember our first student with GRIP. I don't know where he is. He graduated, though. I do know that much.
He did.
And we put him into a placement of something that was more desirable than what he was actually engaging in school. So I can say that the program has proved beneficial to several students that I'm aware of that are in those units. I don't know if board members know, but we had one student, I believe it was last year, that did not even have Thanksgiving meal, and GRIP volunteered, bought the meal, cooked the meal, took the meal to the home and served it. So those are the things that they're doing for our students that are out there exploring other things while we're trying to change them and move them back into being productive students within our schools so they can be productive citizens for our community. So I want to thank you all for that overview today. Are there any questions for Captain Sewell or Mr. Wiggins? Ms. Reynolds, Ms. Miller?
Thank you for this. And especially without having your PowerPoint, I was very impressed at your ability to improv. Specifically on pages 4 and 5, you showed the gaggle reports. The bar graph in particularly, I think, is very impactful of how many hits we had during the months when students returned home for concerns of mental health issues, and you specifically say in here that they were distressed by the pandemic. Have we seen, it looks like June kind of went back to normal. Have we seen this school year with students still being home
We did
for
see
e-learning? Do we continue to see a spike?
We did see a spike at the beginning of the school year, and we learned that turning off the chat portion of Microsoft Teams, allowing them to communicate between each other, showed another decrease. So once we got Microsoft Teams turned off, it has gone back down with gaggle reports.
Okay. And is that, I mean, them not being able to communicate it and us not being able to catch it, are we at all concerned that it may still be happening, it just isn't, they're not putting it on our software, I guess, now? Does that make sense?
It does, and I understand. I think giving them access to be able to talk to each other in the classroom, I mean, it would be just like them having the conversation. But we do have other, the Florida social media monitoring tool that's, monitoring all those platforms. So I think that there is another layer that's going to catch it if they put it on other social media. I just think it helps us from giving them the opportunity.
Okay. Gotcha. I think it speaks volumes to that it's a balancing act right now of, yes, COVID's a health concern, but there's also a mental health component to it that we have to be cognizant of as well as we're balancing the health and safety of our students. So
yes, ma'am.
Thank you again for your report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Miller?
Hi, thank you for this lengthy report. I just have a couple of questions, and I appreciate the work you've done on training officers in autism spectrum-related disorders. I saw that, and I actually heard from the group that did the training, and they were very pleased with the participation. I'm curious, too, is this something we're going to do regularly? Because we've had it in the past. It's never been something that was all scheduled annually. And can you clarify the participation? Was it all of our school resource officers? Was it just Polk County? Because in the past, it was up to the cities to send. We didn't get the turnout due to there was no mandate to it. It was just offered.
This year, because of COVID, we did not have a facility large enough to accommodate all 53 of the officers. So right now, we did just the Polk County Sheriff's Office, which we have, over 30 of the supervisors. I attended the training as well, which I felt was very beneficial, and yes, we will be bringing them back.
So will we include the, because a couple of incidents that I get reports on are not our sheriff's SROs.
We will be giving it to, as soon as COVID is
Right.
manageable,
Right.
yes. So I planned on bringing them back for next school resource annual training in August.
So including all of them.
All of them, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Captain Seymour, for bringing that up, because I was going to say, Ms. Miller, there is an annual training that they all attend each year, so thank you. Ms. Fortney, then, Mr. Townsend, did I see your hand? And then Ms. Fields. Ms. Fortney?
Hi, yeah, I apologize, they're mowing next door. I would like to go back to the financial sustainability statement that was made earlier. Are we saying that we are not getting the funds from the state for a mandated requirement?
I think that's
No, that's not what I meant. I meant that just obtaining funding for some of the programs and equipment that we currently have is going to be a challenge. I think obtaining funding and budgeting is a challenge for everyone. I'm not stating that the funding from the state is being impacted or reduced any further than what it is right now. I just think we need to make sure that we have funding available to manage what we currently have in place.
Okay, I just want to make sure we have that as well. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Townsend and Ms. Fields?
Yeah, I have just a sort of few questions, thoughts that occurred to me while you're reading this. First of all, what specifically about this report is confidential? I think you kind of hit on all of it. I mean, like, this was live, right? I mean, we're not, it says the report's confidential, but.
Right, we do not go and put this out for publication, basically. They can give you the information,
Right.
but to go and reproduce it in publication, we don't do that. That's what we've never done that before.
Okay,
It's always been confidential.
I mean, what I'm going to ask you about something, I'm like, but this, we didn't go into closed session or anything. I mean, this was
No,
all
we did
just-
not. We didn't.
Yeah,
That's another type report, but this one is not for publication at all.
Right. Well, I mean, what I'm saying is that the public can see most of it by watching this meeting, so, for what it's worth. Can you tell me what an unannounced lockdown drill entails? I mean, I want to make sure that's not, that the public doesn't misunderstand that that's a bunch of people like simulating a
No.
real shooting drill. Like, we had an incident like that a few years ago,
Correct.
and I just want to.
We do not do that. So every month, my lieutenant, he sends the schools that we plan on visiting that month, just so they don't do a lockdown drill the day before we get there. So we let them know, hey, you are our, 10 schools for the month. We're going to be showing up sometime this month to conduct your drill and give you feedback. And we will go out as a team. I have all of my sergeants and my lieutenant. We put the school into lockdown, and we check everything that we check, and then we sit down afterwards and have a debriefing and give them feedback on tips or things that we recommend that they are implementing during their lockdowns.
But it's clearly identified as a drill, like, right? It's not.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Sort of shifting gears real quick. On the GRIP program, which I'm glad to see that discussed at length. My understanding is it's sort of tied to the enhanced penalties or the enhanced status of being a quote-unquote gang member. In the past, when I've seen these numbers for sort of the gang affiliation stuff, the kids who are labeled as that are overwhelmingly kids of color. Is that still the case? I mean, has that? What are the? I mean, there are lots of. You look around society today, and there are a lot of affiliations that one might call gangs across the board today, and I just want to make sure there aren't types of kids who are cited for this much more often than others. And can you talk about the relationship between what gets somebody pulled into sort of the gang affiliation as a status, and then the GRIP program as a helpful way to address that?
if they've displayed any kind of activity that is gang-related, whether it's throwing up hand signs, wearing clothing that signifies with a gang, or parents reach out to us, I think my child is involved in a gang that is running in this neighborhood, we will go out and make contact. But most of the time, it's the schools that reach out and say, hey, we have an at-risk student, can you come and talk to them? But it's not just us saying, I think you're a gang member, I'm going to come talk to you. We have some kind of information fed to us before we get involved.
Do we have a racial or ethnic breakdown of how that works? I mean, if you don't have it on hand, that's fine, but I'd like to see it.
I do not, but I can see if we can get that for you.
And then also, I just want to come back to the RPOs real quick. I mean, I have to be honest. I think in the very little of what happened in the aftermath of the Stoneman Douglas shooting was helpful. I think most of it was security theater, but the RPOs are not. And if you look at that's the risk protection orders where they take guns away from folks who are a danger. I think if you look at the March of 2020, as we were, heading into the COVID time, we had 16 RPOs in that month. That's 16 people who potentially pose a threat to kids or adults or whatever who had their guns removed from on them. And 61 for the year is a pretty big number too. That's more than just about anything I can think of. That is taking an action that removes a potential threat. So I want to compliment our law enforcement folks who have done that. I know the sheriff has been particularly aggressive in RPOs, often to taking some criticism about it. It's an important safety tool, and I think as well, when you look at the balance of how the Stoneman Douglas shooter stuff played out and how the COVID safety stuff has played out, there's a real strange incoherence, I think. We wanted to drive as many kids as possible back into a potentially unsafe, and adults, potentially unsafe situation. And I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about at the higher level. While at the same time, in the aftermath of Stoneman Douglas, you have something that happened once in 20 years in Florida, and the pressure to protect against the small possibility that it would happen again. It's just an interesting reflection on how we look at risk, on how we as a society, what terrorizes us and what does not. So I just find that intriguing. It's my last day, so I'm going to talk about that. Anyway, I don't think if I have anything else. I don't think I do. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fields?
I want to commend you guys for your work. I remember some years ago, we had a very obvious issue with gangs in our cities. And I remember when you all came before us to talk about the GRIP program and the impact that it's had is obvious. There was a young man that was in a diversion program through Girls Inc. that was killed through a gang related issues. So I know that you guys have been working real hard. I know that the cities have worked real hard as well. So I want to thank you all for that and encourage you all to keep it up and know that we're here to support as best we can.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cunningham?
Thank you, and I too want to express my sincere thank you. To get to this point, there's a ton of individuals and a lot of hours, a lot of dedication, and a lot of heart that goes into what you all are doing for our students and our families. And oftentimes, I don't think we say thank you enough. So I just want to say on behalf of those students and their families who are, who've reaped the benefits of your tireless effort and work. I just want to say thank you on behalf of them, because as we know, when you change or help one child in one life, that goes out into their family, and their extended family, neighbors, friends, and so forth. And I know particularly in my area, as Ms. Fields indicated, we had a lot of gangs my side of the county, and a lot of time and effort has been spent. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of those students and the families, and obviously our greater community. We so appreciate what law enforcement does for our students and our schools and our communities every single day. We thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No further questions. Thank you all. The next item, you have policy updates, and I see Ms. Dodge. She's here. Board members, you have the policy updates that are in our binder, and you see the Neola recommendations.
Finally, policy updates. Been looking forward to this all afternoon. Good afternoon. We have 4 policy updates before you today. The first one is our tobacco-free environment update. That will be replicated in 4 other policies in addition to the 3215 that is listed, and that's regarding signage around our campuses, notifying people that we are a tobacco-free environment. It prohibits the use on any grounds or facilities, including rented or leased facilities, and making announcements at sporting events and those types of events throughout the district. The next policy is crowdfunding. That has been updated to include a definition and making sure that staff understands that anything obtained through crowdfunding becomes the property of the district. The next is 753001. We are deleting our wireless communication allowance policy because we do not have any employees right now who receive any allowance for using their personal cell phones. And any language in that policy that was related to accessing resources using your own personal cell phone is being transferred to 7542, which you will see next month. And then the last policy is remote access to the district's network. That is related to who and how you get access to VPN and other services that the district offers, and then establishes guidelines for use of those services while you're using those services that the district offers. So are there any questions?
Ms. Reynolds, then Ms. Miller, then Mr. Wilson.
I just have one, and it's not a huge deal. I'm just curious, on page 2 of the tobacco policy, the first bullet point talks about notice that it's illegal under federal law for any person, student, or visitor under the age of 21. And then the 4th bullet point, we're contacting law enforcement for anyone under the age of 18. Is there a reason for the contacting law enforcement at 18, even if it's, if we have a 19-year-old student, should we be contacting law enforcement if they're on our campus and have possession? Does that? Okay.
For an adult student to have a tobacco product, it's a violation of school board policy. It's a violation of law for a student who is under legal age to possess it.
I think is it not 21 now? Because we say in the bullet point, not anyone age of the 21 to possess, purchase, or attempt. I know they can't purchase under 21 currently. That's why I was curious.
That I don't know.
Because I believe that was updated about a year
I
ago.
don't even have a fourth bullet point on here, so
Sorry,
I'm not
it's
quite sure.
the third, on page 2, the first thing is the no tobacco signs.
Okay,
And then it's tobacco products, anything defined, and then law enforcement shall be contacted if any person under the age of 18 violates this policy.
okay, so in the first paragraph, it says not of the age of 21 to possess, purchase, or attempt to purchase. And then you're saying that
That we're contacting law enforcement if they're 18 or under.
okay.
Yeah, we need to resolve that and determine whether it's 21 or 18.
So, okay. Here's how I read it. The first paragraph is talking about when we're going to tell students. And the second part is about when we're going to contact law enforcement. So under the first part, we're providing notice to students that anyone under 21 is not allowed to have tobacco products. And under the second part, that's when we're actually going to contact law enforcement.
Okay, I guess my question was just if it's illegal under 21 and we have a 19-year-old student, are we saying that we're not contacting law enforcement if they have something in their possession that they should not have? Again, it doesn't prohibit us from contacting law enforcement. I just, with the recent change in
Okay.
that, I don't know if there's a.
So we can certainly change
makes
the
sense, yeah.
law enforcement to anyone under 21, if that's
That would
what
be
you would
my
like to do.
thought, but I don't know what the rest of the board believe.
I think it should be consistent.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say, if you leave it up to interpretation, you can interpret, because I interpret it, they're 18,
Either way.
they're not supposed to have it, but someone might interpret it, well, what you're saying. So if you put under 21, that will cover it, and you don't have to have the interpretation be different.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I believe I saw Ms. Miller, Mr. Wilson, then Mr. Townsend.
Hi, I want to talk about the crowdfunding policy that we have here.
Okay.
I just need a little more explanation on this. It gets to be a little cloudy when we have teachers that go out and do fundraising for classrooms. I understand if somebody is donating 27 iPads to that classroom, but a lot of them do it for consumables and things that they use. I want to talk about what it means to this principal and who will oversee what's now becoming property of the class. I don't know that I would be for making everything that they fundraise for belong to the school or the district, and who will oversee that? Because that's also a staffing issue at the sites, somebody going around and collecting inventory on what's been fundraised for. Do other districts do this? Is there a dollar amount, or is it anything, even if you're fundraising for snacks? Like, is this something that, how are we going to document this, I guess I'm asking?
Our district, I believe, has a $750
That's correct.
threshold for when we document purchases.
Okay.
So that's when it gets like an SAP number and becomes part of our inventory. Anything under that, it would be, I'm going to call it the honor system.
So we're
But-
making a policy for everything, we're not considering the 750 to be included in this policy?
Well, what we're trying to do here is to make sure that we don't have people going out and crowdfunding for things that aren't being used at the school level. So it's kind of a balancing act. You don't want to say, you can collect up to $500 and not use it at your school or in your classroom.
I could understand that. I'm just trying to see how to define it. This last school year, we had, on social media, we had groups started by community members who wanted to help support classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And Amazon lists were filled, like, things like this that were used. Are we now going to create another level of documentation for those items? I mean, I kind of go look at it, the honor system, the other direction, unless we've had a problem with people fundraising and pocketing erasers or whatever they're buying from Amazon. I just want to make it, and I hear from administrators, like, is this going to be something they have to keep up with? So I don't know if we need to, I just want to clarify that for the community.
Right. So I guess I'm looking at it in terms of what do we want our policy to be? Do we want our policy to be that it's okay to gather things in the name of your school and the district and not keep track of them? Or do we want our policy to be that this is our expectation, and then what you do with it is what you do with it, knowing what the expectation is?
So leaving it to site-based to enforce some kind of inventory system?
I don't think we're talking about an inventory system.
No.
Okay.
No, we're not talking about inventory, but I can tell you as a former principal, when you had a business partner would go out and purchase iPads, that was purchased for that school, not purchased for that teacher to, when they move on, to take those. They're purchasing them for their community and their school at that time. But a lot of things are consumables as well, so those things you would not have to document. But I think most principals know the things that are over that threshold, they're going to make sure they account for. And especially when they're getting those donations and different things from, businesses, the businesses will let them know this is for this classroom or this school at that point. And so they are keeping up with it that way. It's just some of the things that we do internally on a campus that we keep up with. I don't know if that confused you even more.
No,
but-
I understand the theory of this, the spirit of this. I just know I was very proud to see anonymous donors filling an Amazon list of teachers of textiles and things that aren't, not of much value, not really iPads, but a lot of the consumable items, a lot of the things they would use throughout the year. And I just don't want to put another layer of something, one, that we're not really going to enforce, or two, that would create another level of, some kind of advisory from the staff. So if we're leaving it at the site base to decide what those things are, will they need to report when they're crowdfunding? Will these people now, are we going to require teachers to report when they're starting these kinds of things?
I think that previously the policy already required that it had to be approved prior to the crowdfunding, if you're saying it's for your school or your classroom.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wilson, then Mr. Townsend.
Yes, thank you. I had a question about the tobacco policy. Does this mean if we have an employee who smokes that they have to leave all district property to smoke?
Yes, and I believe there's it's so many feet from the doorway, so that, like if you're coming in the doorway, there's not a big smoke cloud from somebody if you're a non-smoker.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you have to leave district property, that's going to mean there won't be anywhere close to the door anywhere. Is that correct? Am I missing something?
Currently, that is correct. Most of them will walk off campus. You have to leave the campus for a smoke break or whatever. They do walk off campus, and we currently have that in place right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I was just having a look at the age distinctions, and that arises because there is a distinction. It is unlawful to sell tobacco to someone under 21. It is not unlawful for someone between 18 and 21 to use it. So that's the distinction.
Okay. Mr. Townsend?
Yeah, mine's also about the tobacco, and it just, while I was listening to Sarah about that, actually, the last thing about law enforcement shall be contacted if any person under the age of 18, and I agree, it probably needs to be a unified age, but man, that's, law enforcement shall, for any, I mean, our first, I mean, we're in a world where we're trying to avoid the unnecessary connections between law enforcement, in a punitive way with kids. Does it have to be mandatory like that? Is there some way to, I mean, any time the kid has any kind of tobacco product, we're going to call law enforcement on them? That just seems like a lot of unintended consequences to that. I would urge maybe to think through with administrators what's a better way to address that. I mean, obviously there has to be an option if they refuse to address it, but that just seems like a real, tough requirement.
And I can tell you that most administrators, when they have those students on campus at your secondary level, they usually counsel those students, and they have other interventions that they put in place. They don't usually just go straight to law enforcement,
Well-
unless it's an habitual person and they continue to do something and they have to really intervene in a different way.
Right, but like this changes that policy. That makes this out of policy. I am in favor of that kind of discretion, but this policy says law enforcement shall. Like, I mean, there's no wiggle room there. And, you know, I don't think you want policy that's way out of whack with experience on the ground on something like this. So that might be worth, you know, give it may, can, you know, like just may, just give it some sort of discretion.
I think you can put the word, they can, because most of them are going to exercise a judgment on, you know, the kids.
I
Sometimes
agree.
kids make bad mistakes.
No, I'm.
And you have to counsel them.
No, I'm 100% with you. I'm just saying the way this reads, it's shall, and it seems like to make that contrary to policy, like it makes discretion contrary to policy, and I just think that would probably be a mistake.
I'll get with Ms. Dodge and we'll make sure, because we don't want to really penalize our children if they're for a bad mistake, so we can get together on that wording there.
Sure.
Any other questions? Ms. Cunningham, then back to Ms. Reynolds.
So you're going to get together at another time? Because these are coming before us tonight. Will you be able to resolve? Is this not coming
No,
tonight?
ma'am.
I'm so sorry, different one,
The
sorry.
policies that are coming before you tonight
The ones
were
from last time. Okay, thank you. Just making sure.
2 times ago,
Okay.
because we have to have 30 days.
Too much going on.
Yeah,
Okay,
so-
great, thank you.
Ms. Reynolds, I see your hand back up.
I just was gonna, I think if we say that law enforcement can be contacted if any person under the age violates this policy, I don't want us to exclude that if we have someone that's being disruptive over the age, that we can't contact them.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes it more exclusive, but just a point before you go and conference it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We'll look at the language on that. Any other questions regarding policies? Okay, Ms. Dodge, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Board members, I noticed that we have a few items that are on information. I would just let you know the turnaround plan option for Griffin, we just have to bring that back. It's nothing new because there was no data attached because of COVID entering last year in March. All we have to do is resubmit the same plan, what we resubmitted the last time. Our option that we chose last time was closure in the event that they did not make the grade, and that's the one we're not changing anything. We'll still resubmit that. I can tell you, however, that we're working very hard to make sure, again, that does not happen. We felt very confident last year it was not going to happen, and we're working to make sure it does not happen this year. So I really want to bring that to your attention. That's why that is on an information item, because it's just sending them the new one for this year instead of what we sent last year. If you have any questions on item 8, I see Mr. Baldwin is here for item 8 if you have questions on that one. And the quarterly is the regular item that's usually coming before you. With there being no further questions, I do believe the chair, we had a break at 2 o'clock. We are not that far off. Well, yes, we are. So would you like to take a 10-minute break? How would you like it, Madam
Yes,
Chair?
ma'am, if we could take a 10-minute break, it's
Quarter till.
2:33. Let's reconvene at 2:45.
Thank you.
If that will work.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Superintendent Byrd, this is Sarah. Any way I can get with you on some questions on the quarterly report?
Yes, you can.
Thank you. I
You're-
will tie forward with it.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Good afternoon. I'd like to continue with our work session this afternoon. And our next item is our board review, our agenda review for the board meeting this evening. So I would like to ask the board, I will go through the agenda here quickly and see if anyone does have any questions. And my computer turned off, so yeah, how exciting. Okay, I don't have numbers, so we'll go basically from the beginning of the consent agenda. So from business services, general items, board members, up through facilities and operations, architectural services. Do we have any questions? Okay, Mr. Townsend?
I think we should probably pull the big COVID money one off and just put that on regular, just because it's such, it's the interlocal agreement with the county and the, isn't that on consent? It's like $9 million or more. Am I
Which
crazy?
item are you, I need you to
It's
give me an item number.
It's B17, I'm sorry, you said.
Okay. So what's the deal? You want to do what with it?
I want to put that on to regular.
Is there a consensus of the board to do that? I don't see the need. I need a consensus of the board to move it, to pull it today.
Madam Chair, as a point of order, I don't think consensus is necessary.
I know, but I would like to ask for that today. The agenda's already been set. I could have been notified prior to this point in time. So I'd like to ask if anyone else would like this item pulled, if there's any reason.
Well, I think the fact that a board member's asked for it, I would support that.
Okay? Anyone else?
Yes, Sarah Fortney would.
Yeah, I'm, at point of order is that we are allowed to do that, so I would,
Okay.
I would hope we could do that.
I simply asked. Okay. So item, what, B17?
And I don't know if we have this ready for tonight, but it would be good to have some sort of breakout for how exactly we intend to spend that. I just saw the agreement on the.
Give me just a moment to pull that agenda up, please. Thank you.
Yeah, it's $9.5 million. If that's all going to the fund balance, let's make that, let's make the public understand that. If there's, I had some folks wanting to see what we had spent for transportation to do COVID related stuff. You don't necessarily have to have that for tonight, but it would be good to have a breakout of what we've spent for bus drivers, for transportation, and if any of that's coming out of this money, I'd be interested to know that. So,
Okay, so go ahead and pull it, Mr. Townsend.
right.
Okay. All right, items 18, if you will, through items 27. Do we have any questions? Items 18 through 27. Moving on, items 28 through 35. Do we have any questions? Okay. Next, we have items 36 through items, let's go through 42. Items 36 through items 42. Okay, then items 43 through items 48 on the consent agenda. Items 43 through items 48. Any questions, board members?
I do. This is Sarah. So this is on 48, the Bryant Stadium parking lot purchase. I understand the need, and I understand the.
That's not that one. We're not there yet.
there yet.
That's on the regular agenda.
I thought you said
We're
48.
still on consent, no. Anything up through item 48, workforce education, business services, general, on the consent. Okay, seeing none, let's move to the regular agenda. Items 49 and 50. Go ahead, Ms. Fortney.
Yeah, I realize it's a decent deal, et cetera, but in COVID times, is it wise to be buying parking lots when we are facing maybe cutting staff later in the 2021 school year? I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Townsend?
I'd sent a note about this. I was contacted by Central Florida Health. I may be butchering the name. I'm sorry, but it's our our partner with the community school at Crystal Lake as well. They have some facilities that are around there, and there was an interest in trying to collaborate with us to have some sort of master plan. I think that's a good idea, at least like take a look at it. They serve a bunch of the kids that attend our schools, like at that location. Did anyone speak with them in the last week or so about this? You know, they came to me, and I just wanted to see if this had gotten the ball rolling and all.
Yes,
Okay.
of course, Madam Superintendent.
I want to address two things. One, Ms. Fortney's question about the purchase, that's using sales tax dollars, which is what that's for. Two, to address Mr. Townsend, and I know that Ms. Clausen has spoken to several people, one person on staff, and we did let her know that we have first right of refusal, which we are going to purchase for parking. They were looking at doing a land swap, which has not been something that has been recommended to us, and we're going to look at that as for the parking lot. I do have an email where I sent to her, and I'm going to meet with her afterwards, but I did let her know we're going to move forward with the purchase of it. Actually, we are at Miss Usher, you can let me know, but I believe we are at a time certain with this purchase, because after the appraisal, we are now in time certain with it. If we do not purchase, we will not have that first right anymore. My recommendation at the work session was to purchase the property, because in my essence, Mr. Townsend, if we do not have any parking, you might as well sell the stadium.
Thank you, Superintendent Byrd, because I wanted the public to know it was sales tax money, not money we could use for salaries. I appreciate that.
You're correct. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments on 50, acquisition of the acreage? Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also was contacted by the CEO of Central Florida Healthcare, and I am in favor of moving forward with the purchase. I think it's important that we have parking for Bryant Stadium. But I also would encourage, Superintendent Byrd, I know we've had this conversation, the staff, after we acquire the property, to reach out and have that discussion, because it's important that we be good neighbors in our community, and that's a nonprofit that serves the indigent population. So if there's something that we can work out on behalf of our community and our school district that is a win-win for everyone, I think we should at least have a conversation about that. So again, I'm in favor of moving forward with the purchase, but I would hope we could have that conversation later. And I know you have a meeting to speak with the CEO, so I think that's a great first step. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Anyone else? Ms. Miller?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Also, I had been in contact. They had reached out to me as well and explained kind of the process. And I do appreciate the superintendent meeting with them. I know there had been meetings before, I think, with our deputy superintendent, and we did not have that information because I thought it was resolved before we got to the work session. So I think in the future, I agree with Mr. Wilson that we should look at being good neighbors and working with the community. They already work with us in our community school, but having a clear, if we could have had that wrapped up so they weren't, in a crisis looking at, we're about to vote on something they wanted to have input on, and they felt that the input wasn't available and they weren't allowed to do that ahead of time. I would like to see that process a little more clarified for them, but I do appreciate the superintendent reaching out, because if there is something that could benefit all of us, including the community that they serve, I would like to see that for them as well.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Anyone else? Ms. Fields?
I believe we've had conversation about needing to have some additional parking space for some years now. I believe that to be the case. I know that there is not only the school district that utilize that space, but we have other organizations as well. Some of the nonprofits use it, and I know what the parking looks like. We had discussion on this a couple of weeks ago, I believe we did, and there wasn't any discussion about anyone else needing to have a conversation with us. I'm happy that Ms. Byrd is going to be talking with them, because Mr. Wilson is correct. We need to be good neighbors. But I too believe that we need to go forth with our earlier discussion, which is the purchase of the property for parking.
Thank you, Ms. Fields, and I too agree that I believe we should move forward. We had an extensive discussion at our last work session regarding the need for this, and I feel that our staff has gone out and done their due diligence and provided the best possible option going forward. And of course, we always want to work together with the community and, you know, be good stewards of the money that is being spent. And so, but I do feel that I will be supporting this this evening.
Thank you. And Madam Chair and to the board, I just want to be clear that I did not know about the interest from Ms. Clausen until after we had discussed it on Tuesday. Okay. And I have reached back out, and I will let her know that I will have a discussion and sit down and speak with her. But I did not know of that, and I did let her know we were moving forward with the purchase of the property.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Anyone else? Mr. Townsend?
Right. I mean, I don't think this has to be contentious. I don't think any of us knew about that at the time of the discussion. It just, there are three major stakeholders. I mean, there's the city of Lakeland that has an interest in how that part of the road looks. There's a safety problem with crossing the street, like in general. Mm-hmm. I don't even like your whole point about the land swap. I'm not even advocating that. It's just, they're a stakeholder in that area, along with the city, along with us. If there's a way to like combine forces somehow to provide parking and make that a safer way to cross over to the stadium and serve them, I think it would behoove us all and improve how it looks, you know, for the city. I think it's worth a couple of stakeholder meetings to see what's possible. That's what I'm asking for.
Thank you. Okay, now moving on. Are there any questions regarding items 51 through items 54? 51 through 54, Ms. Reynolds?
The policy updates, I spoke with you about Neola, but just, I will be, sorry, I'm looking for the number. I will be voting against the policy 7450.01, which is the putting facial coverings during a pandemic into our bylaws. I just don't think that our bylaws are the place to put face coverings. We've had this conversation before, but that's why I'll be voting no this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Anyone else? Okay. All right, moving forward then. We've completed our board agenda review. Our next item on our agenda today is old business. And so for old business, I have asked Dr. Bill Vogel from the Florida School Boards Association to join us today. Dr. Vogel, if you'd be so kind and come forward. He has some updates for the board because our next meeting is not until November 30th. So, Dr. Vogel, I'm going to turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Cunningham and members of the board. Before I get started, I just wanted to say I arrived early today, and I was very impressed with your review of the new schools you're building and the renovations, and it really looks like you're impacting every aspect and every part of the whole county. So I think you'd be commended on that. And also, I was very impressed with the report from the Sheriff's Department and your team, and that also is exemplary. The partnership has been absolutely outstanding, and I know it's recognized statewide. I'm pleased to go ahead and give you a brief update today. First, as you know, last week we completed 6 community forums, staff forums, and a student input session, which was virtual. I want to thank the board members for providing a welcome at that those events. I'd also like to thank Wendy. She was a big help in facilitating the student virtual forum. And by the way, that worked out extremely well. We had 23 students participating. Board members have received copies of the summaries, or you will be receiving those summaries. We do each one individually. Also, we had a total of 138 individuals participating over the week. which included 23 virtual students, which I thought was a good number to get input from. Also, Rachel reports that we have received 1,475 surveys already. And that information, the survey will be up until November 12th, and then we'll provide a summary of that to the board by November 16th. So that information is coming together. What we'll do with all this information is I will take all the information and do my best job about coming up with around 10 qualities for your brochure. I'll try to do a summary of all those. The board members will be able to look at those. Also, just a few comments about the forums, which I'd like to make at this time. One, I was very impressed with the positive remarks about the responsiveness of the school board and the superintendent when people from the community or staff people brought them concerns. And that was kind of a general theme that I heard. Another theme that I heard was the COVID response has been very positive overall. And the relationship that you have with the health department is another one of those relationships that has really made that possible. It was very, very positive. Third, and this is a shout out for the Community Relations and Public Relations Department. Several people commented on the motto, Students First, and as really being positive and kind of driving action. And finally, if I would come up with a theme, just as an outsider here, just gathering information, the theme that I really picked up on was people want to build on the success of Polk County schools. It's not like, there's always challenges, and you'll see those, but it was more so that they wanted to build on the success of Polk County schools. So you'll have more information on that. Second, what I'd like to do, because this has been a real, quite a project, I'm going to pass this out right now to you. What we did was John and I worked with Mrs. Cunningham, and we took the list.
Dr. Vogel, I would pass it out and then, because they can't hear you, I don't think. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
I'd like to just restart by saying thank you for submitting your list of organizations and then a list of individuals for the superintendent screening committee. John Reichert and I worked with Mrs. Cunningham, and I'm going to tell you, it took many hours to do our best to match up individuals with organizations. As you can see on this, initially we received about 50 organizations, and we were able to match up individuals with 37 of these organizations. And I'd like to just make note that not every board member or every organization is represented here that you recommended. Please review this, and if you have any questions, please give me a call. We really believe that this represents every organization that we could incorporate, as well as individuals board members recommended. And what we have this is on the agenda for November 30th. So if you have any questions about this between now and then, please give me a call. And I put another one of my business cards out in front of you. Also, just a note, now it's possible that someone on this list might apply for the job of superintendent, and if they apply, we would certainly not include them on that list. So that was the second item that I had. The third item, I'd like to give you kind of an update on what's planned for November 30th. And this is going to be quite an extensive meeting. On November 30th, the first thing that we'll do, and we're going to send a lot of information out in plenty of time so board members will have a chance to review it before that meeting. What I'm going to do, again, is like I said, I'm going to take all the information from the surveys, and I'm going to go ahead and bring that forward to you. But there's one thing that I heard from board members as I was going around, is there was an interest in board members having one more opportunity for people to give us input. So what we can do, if the board members would like to just give me a yes on that if they'd like, is we can go ahead and place on your website a video that would give individuals who maybe did not have a chance to go to one of the forums or want to give additional input, to give them a link. And they could go on the website, and then they could answer by email the same 3 areas that everybody who went on who was at the forums answered. 1, what are the strengths in those areas of Polk County Schools that the next superintendent needs to understand? 2, what are the critical needs? And 3, what personal qualities they would like. So what they would do is, my suggestion, we would work with Rachel on this. You'd go on the portal, you'd go ahead and click on that, and then you could email your responses. There'd be a video explaining what to do. It would go to Mrs. Messina in Tallahassee, and then she could actually, then at the end of the week, we could post that for a week, she could give us a summary of all of the responses. And then even people, if they leave their email, could even get a summary of all the responses that came in through that method. So if board members would like to do that, we certainly could add that. And my suggestion is Rachel could publicize it between now and the end of this week, and then we could post it November 2nd through November 6th and get even more input. And I just like, is that, Ms. Cunningham, does that sound like something that the board would like?
Well, I know that several board members reached out and asked for a virtual community forum. So is that, the virtual community
Yes,
forum
ma'am.
is what you're presenting today? Okay.
yes.
All right, well, I'll let the board members weigh in. Would you all like to have that week? Yes, Ms. Reynolds?
I just want to make sure that we have an opportunity for anyone who wasn't able to attend.
Yes.
I know a few people I talked to in the Winter Haven area said, I wish, I would have left a day later for my vacation if I had known, but we're going to be out of town, those types of things. So I want to make sure that they have the opportunity to participate in a forum type setting. So if that's the solution to that, then that sounds great to me.
Yes, it's pretty hard virtually to do it open, totally open, because you never know how many people are going to come in, and you have to send invitations. So this was our best thought on the way that we could go ahead and accomplish what several board members asked when we were out. So we'll work with Rachel on that. She's here.
Hang
we'll
on,
talk about
Ms.
that.
Miller,
Yes,
go
ma'am.
ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think you'd mentioned in the past that you had other districts that did some kind of virtual forum.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, this is what you're referring to, or did you do some kind of open forum? Because I do see the complications with trying to provide access in an open setting, but we do want to provide some kind of virtual input, because, I heard from people that went, and a lot of staff and a lot of, people that were there, that I think we'd have seen a lot larger audience online.
This is the way that we've been successfully able to do it. There always has to be some way where people can email or send in their responses or questions, because it's really hard. We really don't know a way where you can just open it up and have everybody call in. We don't mind doing that. But we think this will give us a good response.
I do. I think this will be, we can control this a lot better. The open call-ins, it's hard to control, and it's also limiting time-wise. So people can go on at any time and fill this or go into this section.
Correct. And I think it's really kind of neat, if people will give us their email, which they'll have to email in, we can send them actually a summary of it. I'll tell you, Andrea Messina is a master of technology, and she came up with this, and we can work with, we've really enjoyed working with Rachel on this process on that. So we'll add that to our community input, and then we'll take all of that, and I will do my best to put together 10 qualities for you to consider. Now, you'll have time to weigh in on that too, because we don't have a lot of extra room in the brochure, but we should be able to get 10 in there based on all the information that I've heard. Sound all right? Great. Okay, the next thing that we will do is bring back a recommendation for the salary for the job, because we're getting close to the posting time. And what we do is we have a comparison of all the appointed superintendents and salaries in the state. We'll provide that ahead of time. We'll be asking the board to set the length of contract. Normally that's 3 years, but we'll bring that forward. And also the minimum and preferred qualifications. We got a lot of feedback from people who attended the meetings on that. And so we'll bring that back. We'll also look at what you used the last time too, but we'll bring that back. The contents of the application package and how we're going to do that. We've already decided that you'd like them to go through FSBA, so we'll have that. We'll be giving you a list of the national venues for advertisement that we've had a lot of success in drawing applicants on. And then we will actually come back and get close to a finalization of the brochure. And we work with Rachel. She's going to provide board members with some different options on the brochure. She's kind of developed 3 different options. And during the next few weeks, she'll send those out to the board members. You all can look at those, give her input, and we can get a brochure that we'll all be in agreement on. So we really appreciate the information on that. And then finally at this meeting, what we'll do is talk more about the screening committee. We'll actually provide some guidelines for the board to consider. And we want to emphasize again, this is strictly an advisory committee. The board makes the decisions but we'll bring some guidelines that we have. We'll bring some rules and procedures that we're going to recommend. We'll work with Mr. Bridges on that also to make sure he's on board. And so that there's a lot of those items that are going to come forward. So we'll probably need a little time on the 30th. But we wanted to come forward today and just give you an idea of what's coming up and what we've gone so far. As far as we're concerned, it's been great working with your team, and the search is going on. Process is moving very smoothly. And I've also had a lot of people contact me about the job too, so that's pretty exciting too. So if there are any questions, that's my update.
Ms. Fields?
Yes.
I wanted to know, how are we going to promote the virtual forum? Because some of the concerns that I heard before was that a lot of people did not know about our community forums. So how are we going to do that other than using Facebook and our website?
Yes.
Ms.
Rachel and I have
Pleasant?
talked
Yeah,
about that.
if you would
Okay, Rachel,
join us.
go ahead.
I sent the board an email outlining how we had promoted the forums prior to them taking place last week. We did utilize all our social media channels. We did 2 school messengers that reached all of our employees and parents. We sent emails to members of our local legislative delegation and local leaders, including mayors, county and city commissioners, that included a printable flyer and graphics they could post on their social media accounts. So we will employ the same methods using all of our available channels, our social media accounts, our website, our school messenger system that does call of our employees and all of our employees and parents. We'll contact local leaders in the community and ask them to help spread the word. I hope all you will help us spread the word on your mediums as well. We're open to, if you have specific suggestions, we're more than happy to take them. But every channel that we have available to us, we are employing in this effort to help spread the word.
Thank you. I think the biggest thing is just making sure that we get it out in a timely fashion, because a couple of people said that they got it like a day before the event. So I don't know what the slowness was. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
If we can get it out as soon as possible.
Yes, ma'am, we will.
And be repetitive with it.
Yes, ma'am, we will.
And what we'd like is we're going to use November 2nd through November 6th, because once all this information comes in, I'm going to have to try to do what I can to pull it all together. And then I want to make sure I get it to the board well in advance of November 30th. So that's why we're doing it. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you. Ms. Reynolds?
Just to echo a little bit of what Ms. Fields said, that was the same thing. I heard that they didn't receive it until late Friday, and the event was Monday, and there were already other things on their calendar. So I think getting it out as soon as the window opens to be able to submit would be helpful, so they'll have multiple days if they already have something when they get the email. My question is about the screening committee list. Have
Yeah.
all of these individuals already been contacted, either by who nominated them or, okay.
No, they haven't been at all at this time. And we really, this is just a tentative list for the board right now. It took us hours to pull this together to try to combine it to make sure we were well representative, but the people haven't been contacted. That's
Okay,
correct.
I guess my question with that, because the people I've recommended, I've contacted and made sure they were available and willing.
That's
Is
good.
that something that I just want to make sure that we don't have people on this list that when they're contacted, they're like, oh yeah, I can't do that, I'm out of town the whole month, that that we don't have holes of, if Angela Garcia can't do it, that we don't have nobody from Polk State represented. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Let me address that, because there was a lot of discussion. Here's how we're looking at it. Since originally it was organizations, right? And then we tried to slot individuals accordingly. My suggestion would be, but it's a board decision certainly, when we talked was that if we called, let's say Polk State College, and Dr. Falconetti was not able, that she would appoint a provost or somebody to fill in her spot.
And I think that sounds great. I just wanted to make sure that
Yes, ma'am.
that there would be somebody to represent the organizations if the person on this list
Yes, ma'am.
cannot.
That's where that's what we thought, but we're open to your comments. It is a board decision, certainly, and they've been wonderful, in advising us with other searches that FSBA has done, what the proper protocol is with these. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Miller?
If we have a question on the appointments or somebody that may not be on here but might be covered under a different agency, are we contacting you?
Yes, I would be the contact on it, because
Okay.
what we try to do through FSBA was trying to look at agencies that are usually involved on committees such as this. So I've worked on that, and then Cunningham helped fill in names, so we had a good representative group. So please feel free to, I put another business card out in front of you all with my cell phone.
Thank you.
Right, sure, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Mr. Townsend?
So, yeah, so if there's a person that we suggested that's not on the list that we want to vouch for, contact you about it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other comment? Ms. Fields?
I guess my question would be, in looking at the list, I'm sure each of us probably have folks that we had recommended that's not on here. So where do we get to a place where we say everybody is not gonna, that we might have someone that we really want to have on, and they might not be able to, I guess. I mean, where do we get to a place where we say this is gonna be the list? When do we do that? Wes, are we voting on this?
Yes, Ms.
Go ahead,
Ms. Fields,
Dr. Vogel.
More discussion on November 30th, and at that point, we'll narrow down what the actual responsibilities are going to be of this committee, and then on January 12th, the board actually votes on it. And the reason we do that, and we've worked with Mr. Bridges on that, because once this committee is approved by the board and voted on, they are under the sunshine. And Mr. Bridges, you might want to just mention what restrictions are on these members once it's approved.
It'll be just like the rules are for you. So, and Dr. Vogel and I have had several conversations about it. Right now, there's some flexibility, but once that list goes final and is approved by the board, at that point, the sunshine is going to envelop everybody in it, and a memo will go out to them. I think we're actually going to do a video for them explaining that the same restrictions will be on them as in their participation in the committee as there are on school board members when you're participating in a board meeting. So we'll take care of that and get that out to them. But yes, the board will approve the final list once that is gelled, and at that point the sunshine will be in place.
Okay. Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to just commend everyone for the hard work you put into this. I know this has been a lot of hard work, and it looks like you've done a wonderful job. I do have a concern. I'm concerned, we did this by organization. I think it's a great idea. But it seems to me we should have at least one, if not a couple, of employees on here who don't belong to an organization per se. just folks who would like to serve who are employees of the school district. So that would be something I think is incredibly important, and I hope we could find a way to do that.
One, if you will note, each of the 3 employee organizations is represented on this list.
Right, but those aren't, I mean.
Correct.
We do have a principal on here, and I'm not sure what Ms. Burke's role is with ASME, but I'm talking about just classroom employees who aren't otherwise included.
That will be a decision the board would have to make, but I can tell you there are several boards that feel it's almost a conflict to have an active employee on this list. Several boards have taken that position, and that's something this board can discuss, later at a later time.
And to that end, Ms. Burke is here today. If you'd like to stand up, she is the new president of ASME, so everybody knows who she is. And then certainly we have our Polk Education Association represented with Stephanie Yoakum, and she's also in the audience here today. That's right. You are, so, and she's a bus driver, that's correct, so, but yes, we can talk about this further as we move forward, absolutely.
Right.
Again, this is a first place to start, okay? Ms. Miller?
I just want to also mention in the same light as Mr. Wilson, we do have employees that work in certain areas. I specifically requested someone from the migrant farm worker community because because that's such a large, it's very unique to Polk County. Other counties have the same population, but we do have a large population, and they're affected by a lot of the things that happen decision-making wise. And I know they could be picked up by another group possibly, but I think we should look at those individual unique areas of the district, not actually classroom teachers, but maybe people that specialize, either contract with us or work in certain specific areas of populations similar.
Thank you. Ms. Miller? Ms. Fortney?
I think the list, I appreciate it. I know Susan and Linda did a lot of trying to coordinate that. I appreciate it. But I'm still kind of confused, like Ms. Reynolds was, about now we have our individuals, if they were not on the group list.
I don't really know what the question is. I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question? Are you asking or making a statement?
Both. This is not the final list, I understand, but it also does not include individuals that we nominated.
And that is correct. Dr. Vogel?
Yes, that is correct. What we did is we tried to look at organizations and associate individuals with the organizations to the best we had. I preface this by saying not every individual or organization that every board member recommended is on this list. That would not work.
No.
So what we had to do is use a process to go through to do our best job at representing them. And I know this has been a lengthy process, as Mr. Wilson indicated, too, but this is just the time that we're passing it out now. There will be other times to discuss it before a final vote is taken in January.
Well, I agree with Mr. Wilson. I think each board member should have individual contribution as well, besides groups, because I see a lot of the same names that I see everywhere else.
Thank you, Ms. Fortney. Anyone else? Well, at this time, before you leave, Dr. Vogel, Susan's been gracious. I believe Ms. Fields' last meeting requested minutes, and staff's been working on those little by little. So Susan, if you'd be so kind, she's going to go ahead and pass out the minutes to everybody that she has completed, and as we move forward, she'll be sending those to you accordingly. And they've stapled them and put the hole punch in so you can add it to your search committee books.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Dr. Vogel, go ahead.
I'd just like to say it's a real pleasure for FSBA to work here in Polk County. and ask me any question about Polk County, because I've heard so much input over the past week, and I really understand the county, what the priorities are, with the 17 municipalities. I've learned so much from it. So, and that's what we do as an organization, because when any potential candidate asks us, we want to be very knowledgeable. And if any board members have any people they would like for us to consider, please call me also. The search is on. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Vogel, and we appreciate you and FSBA for all the work. And I thought the forums went really wonderful last week, and we got a lot of great input, and we're going to be marching forward and working together to be able to hire the best superintendent to take Polk County Schools to the next level. So thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
Thank you
your
all very
time.
much.
Okay, so that concludes our old business for today, and then new business. Board members, would you like to give some comments today? We can go around. Mr. Wilson, would you like to start?
I have no comments. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Reynolds?
I just want to give a plug, because you all know how much I love lip sync, that we do have a staff member participating in lip sync this year, Steve Warner, who is the Winter Haven area liaison to our schools, and he has some great performances in store. The event will be outside at the Chain of Lakes Stadium on November 5th. We have one of our wonderful judges coming back for around, is it the third year? So it'll be a lot of fun. The gates will open at 5:30. We'll have food trucks out. Tickets are $25, and then the event will start at 7 p.m. And again, that is November 5th. So come and enjoy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ms. Reynolds. Ms. Miller?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no comments other than I think we're doing an excellent job here trying to coordinate this search. Mr. Harris was kind enough to leave everything from the past. So I have a folder full of superintendent searches. I have news clippings from superintendent searches. I have all the documentation from previous superintendent searches.
Wow.
And I think after reviewing those materials, that the draft timeline that we have and how we're moving forward is probably the most efficient that we've seen from the past. But if anyone is interested in what they've looked like, the newspapers are yellowing, but they are available for your reviewing.
Lisa, did he leave you any ties?
I got no ties. I got 2 shirts that I left to Mrs. Fortney.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ms. Miller, for that update. Mr. Townsend?
The question and a suggestion. I meant to ask about this during the COVID thing, but can someone confirm me what the actual status of the healthcare clinic is? Is it off limits for everything but COVID at this point? What is the status of use for it?
Madam Superintendent?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up, and someone asked that earlier. No, you have to have an appointment, and so part of it, when you have an appointment, they will put you in another room to wait for you to go back to the building. But if you need to be, like yesterday, I went and got my flu shot, so unfortunately. So you can just go in and they'll let you get your shot. But if you need an appointment, you can go in there. Now, and it tells you if you have the symptoms for COVID, you need to let them know, and they'll stop you there because they do have employees and everybody else in there. But if you know, that's why we're building that back side. Like in our schools, we have a clinic and an isolation room. We're trying to do that for our employees as well. Understanding that COVID may be around for a while so that we can better serve our employees.
Okay, but it's open for use for for wide use, not
I
just
told you,
for
I was there yesterday for a flu shot.
Okay. Secondly, I was gonna. I'm glad to see Kate in the audience. I was going to recommend something to the board. The Lakeland Leads Group has a report out on, well, it's not out, but they've done it, on Lakeland education. It's very focused on Lakeland. They've been giving some presentations about it. I know it like at a Rotary Club. I would just recommend that the board ask for a copy of that, and I would encourage Kate and her group to publish that publicly. I think if we published it on our website, that would be a helpful thing. It's a strong point of view. They're going to be represented on the screening committee, and I think it probably behooves the public to see what their point of view is. One thing that specifically I found interesting about the explanation they've been giving at civic clubs is how they've broken out Lakeland as its own district. Like they've given Lakeland schools a grade specific to themselves. Said they would rank 42nd out of 68 Florida school districts. I don't know if that's a prelude to anything, but you know, as somebody who thinks a lot about the county as a whole, as the way the system interacts with itself, I think that's a really damaging way to think about the system. And I think those of you who represent other communities should really be aware of that. And you know, I think not only that, it's just the schools that happen to be located in Lakeland. Like for instance, Crystal Lake Middle isn't in the city limits, but it serves tons and tons of Lakeland kids. Like it's my zone school. So I think it would be a service if they would go ahead and make that report available to all the elected board members, and make it available to the public. I don't know if they shared it with the superintendent or not, but if they did, perhaps she would share it. That's just what I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Fields?
I had one item I wanted to know, Ms. Byrd, is there any other location other than the Lakeland Clinic where they're doing the flu shots? And if so, maybe somebody can share that with us.
Haines City, right.
So we must be doing them all. But what I'll do
Yes.
is send that out, and we'll make sure we put it up on our website as well, so that our
Okay.
employees will know. Thank
Yes,
you,
ma'am.
Ms. Burke, for that.
All right, and then just for a point of information, I am meeting with Kate Wallace this week, and she's going to share that report with me, and I'd be more than happy to give it to Susan, and Susan can share it with the board.
Thank you, Ms. Byrd. And Ms. Fields. Okay. Anyone else have any comments to make? Ms.
Yes.
Fortney?
I have just I just want to reiterate what I mentioned earlier about the ADA families, high-risk families, possibly being forced back into brick and mortar, and how I believe that will negatively impact our district because they will flee to virtual schools. The face-to-face e-learning teachers, I apologize. I know it's killing you, and I know we're losing you left and right. Please try to hang in there. And I just want to impress upon the district that we should put salaries of all staff first. And please listen to our unions. Our employees deserve financial compensation. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Fortney. And seeing no other comments, we're going to go ahead and adjourn our work session today, and we will come back and begin our board meeting promptly at 5 p.m. So we will see you at that time. Thank you so much for being here. This meeting is adjourned.